Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. And a happy new year to all of you. I hope you enjoyed New Year's Day. We were off. Hopefully you were off as well. We're going to get back into the swing of things. The holidays are officially in the rear view. You have that month-long gauntlet of Thanksgiving and then Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, whatever you're celebrating. That's kind of breaking up your work weeks, breaking up your social calendar. Now you're back. You're going to slog along until when? Until, like, there's not another real bank holiday until February?
I mean, there's a good number of people who get MLK Day off.
I guess we're the outliers there.
Yeah. So if you get, but not everybody. But if you get MLK Day off, you get a 3-day weekend there.
Okay.
But then the one that everyone has next is, President's Day.
All right. That's James Peterson, by the way, producing on the ones and twos. Lots to talk about today. We're going to have some fun jumping into the basketball world because we've now turned that page. We're post-Christmas. Gordy Chiesa, Sean Mooney, my guy Zachariah. We're going to track down Eric Weddle, I hope, although he's very busy on his family calendar. So we'll see how it goes. Games yesterday. You had one all-time classic, incredible college football bowl game, college football playoff game between Texas and Arizona State. We're going to spend a lot of time on that today because of the obvious Big 12 connections. The Oregon-Ohio State game, a rematch, is something that James will gloat about just a little bit. He's wearing his Buckeyes hat right now. It was not the game I thought it was going to be.
Had no doubts. I had no doubts.
Yeah, sure. Not the game I thought it was going to be, but we'll get into some of that as well. And then, of course, you have to try to figure out when you're in media, when you're in radio, when you're in a position like this, how much you talk about the postponed game, which will be played today. It'll be during the drive with Spence Checketts. You're going to have to flip back and forth, keep the drive on for the audio, and maybe watch the game on mute like James likes to do. But
hey, when you got family time and the family's not that into sports, that's a sacrifice I've had to make.
Hey.
But it's not the worst thing watching it on mute. I don't have to complain about them not talking about my favorite team enough.
And you don't have to complain. You don't have to laugh about how many times Joe Tessitore seems insistent on just cursing people, especially kickers. He verbally ices every kicker, even though they can't hear him. But look, the reason that game was postponed is obviously incredibly heavy stuff. A terrorist attack that claimed human life on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and it's a terrible, awful, tragic, horrible thing to see, to hear about. And the importance of a college football game, even the biggest college football games, just comes into stark relief. It is not important at all compared to all of that. And to see some of the reporting coming out and the ripples being sent across the college football world and just across, the New Orleans community, tragic and terrible and awful. And you hope that justice is done swiftly, and thoughts and prayers to the people affected negatively. You never want to see that on a sports day, on a non-sports day. I mean, there's no words that can really justify the magnitude of that situation, but that is why the game was postponed, and it puts the teams, the bowl officials, the college football playoff committee, it puts everyone in a really tough position because you do try to go about your business as usual and you try to not let things like that affect you, but public safety a concern down in New Orleans, and it seems like the right decision to postpone the game, extend the time that law enforcement and everyone else has to make sure that you can conduct this game safely, especially with the reports that IEDs were placed at various points around the French Quarter, and that it was potentially not just this man who ended up, passing away, was not just this man acting alone. So good luck to everyone down there, law enforcement, especially keeping everyone safe. And hopefully the game and the community is unaffected moving forward. That's all the time I'm going to spend on it. You can't not say anything, but there's nothing I can say that does justice to the magnitude of that situation. So we will continue to be hopefully a welcome distraction here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I didn't know where to start the show. I'll tell you, I was taking my notes as I'm watching the game yesterday, the Texas-Arizona State game. And about midway through the second quarter, I started putting in my notes, game over, valiant effort, good try, nice work, Arizona State. But it's just not going to be your day. And obviously, they battled back, and it was one of the more incredible bowl games that we have seen. I mean, is it on the level from a personal relevance standpoint of the Ohio State-Utah Rose Bowl game? Maybe not. That game was incredibly back and forth and an all-time classic in its own right. This one was right up there. And the heroics that you saw from some of the best players in college football, some of the best players in the Big 12 Conference, to battle back, to see the way that Kenny Dillingham and his team handled the adversity yet again, to make themselves a factor against a Texas team that a lot of people think has all the tools necessary to win a national championship. For Cam Skattebo, who started his career in college football as an under-recruited nobody at Sacramento State, to see that he was able to, against a defense laden with NFL talent, put up nearly 300 yards of total offense. I mean, he talked the talk during the week. He said, nobody realizes I'm the best running back in the country. That performance right there supports that argument pretty heavily. I mean, when you look at the actual numbers, you have to be willing to have the discussion about whether or not Cam Skattebo or Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country. And I know that there are a lot of people here with affection for Boise State, and I'm one of them because of the fact that they wear that same underdog hat that Utah and BYU and some of these other teams regionally have had to wear so often. Cam Skattebo, I don't know. I've never talked to him. I don't know if he's a nice person at all, but he is exactly what you want in a football player. And they did a good job of covering him on the game yesterday and showing, like how mad he was at his team not getting things going early. That's leadership, all right? When he's vomiting on the sideline, and was it Taylor McGregor, the sideline reporter, just casually, well, he was just vomiting profusely, and he's going to be back on the field. People talking about him cramping. He clearly was – he had to tap his own helmet and come out a couple of times, which is not something you've seen from him a ton. And the broadcast did a great job of, talking about, like, why that might be the case. Conditioning. They're like, well, look, he's been off, and he hasn't had to play a fourth quarter in at least a month. So this guy is not used to this. And he battled through. He threw a touchdown pass. He ended up obviously putting up a huge day on the ground, scoring touchdowns when his team needed him to. He was the leading receiver for Arizona State in the game. And I put a question out on Twitter, James, to help me evaluate this, okay? To help me try and figure out how you are supposed to move the goalpost, or you're supposed to adjust your evaluation of a person or of a player based on the level of competition they are facing. Because Cam Skattebo started at Sacramento State, and he was clearly too good to be at Sacramento State. All right? Cam Ward started at Incarnate Word, and he was clearly too good to start at Incarnate Word. He should have always been a Power 5 player, a Power 4 player. Ashton Jeanty is very clearly good enough to be a starting running back on a Power 4 football team. We know what his numbers are. We talked about him a lot this year. He ended up finishing short of Barry Sanders' record. And let's be honest, Barry Sanders' record is truly untouchable. He put up 2,600 yards in 11 games, and he had another 222 yards in a bowl game that, for some reason, does not count towards his season total.
So certainly over 2,800 yards. He may have just gotten to 3,000 or just under 3,000.
I think it's like
yards?
just under 2,900.
Just
total.
under 29.
But
Dang.
But that's like you're not just like, oh, well, back then we didn't count the bowl stats for your season total. Okay, well, now we do. So in 12 games, he put up 28 and a half yards. Like, it's insane, right? So Barry is immortal, I think, in the record book because of the change of college football, because the way the game is played now, et cetera.
That seems way more untouchable than Eric Dickerson's. Not just because it's a lot more yards, but because less game. Well, now it's more games, I suppose.
Now guys are playing more games. But to really do an apples to apples, if Ashton Jeanty was flirting with 2,800 yards through 12 games, we'd all talk very differently about him.
Yeah.
Ashton Jeanty had an unbelievable season, and Cam Scatterbo was beating this drum all week. I'm the best running back in the country. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Okay? You're giving bulletin board material to your opponent, but you're doing so in a way that potentially makes everyone hyper-focus on you and stopping you, and that could open things up for Levitt and the receiving core that was without their best wide receiver. I don't know if Cam Scatterbo's as high-minded as that. I don't know if he thought that through, if that was really the reason he wanted to do it. I think he just believes, hey, I'm the best running back in the country. And from a numbers standpoint, he was the fourth most productive running back in the country from a yards standpoint, a yards per game standpoint. He had 131 yards per game, all right? He was 5.84 yards per carry. Ashton Jeanty, Amarian Hampton, Taj Brooks, all higher totals, yards per carry than him. He was he was fifth in the country in touchdowns this year. He had 21 touchdowns. 5.84 yards per carry is pretty dang impressive. 1,700 yards on the ground. Now, Ashton Jeanty had almost 1,000 yards more than he did. That's a lot. That's a big gap. Ashton Jeanty against a top 5 defense when he had an opportunity to face Penn State, Ashton Jeanty did not have nearly the game that Cam Scatterbo had. And I'm not here to attack Ashton Jeanty. I'm just telling you that when a guy like Cam Scatterbo comes out and says, I'm the best running back in the country, he better back it up because that mantle has been handed to Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, Doak Walker Award winner, Heisman Trophy runner-up in what was a very, very close race. And everyone has crowned him as the best running back in the country. Cam Scatterbo took exception to it, didn't like it, and he went out, and better or worse, he made it a real debate. He played his ass off in a way that when you compare as closely as you can, because they're not truly analogous, a Mountain West schedule is not a Big 12 schedule, all right? And when they both had second-round playoff games against top 5 defenses, one of these guys went off, and the other one, unfortunately, was well beneath his season average. Ashton Jeanty finished with 104 yards on 30 carries, an average of 3.5. That's about half of what he did during the regular season, all right? In the run game, he had 3 catches for 22 yards, so he helped his team a little bit there, but nothing super significant. He certainly wasn't the leading receiver. And as we have said already on the show, Cam Scatterbo, while he was 900 yards short of the season rushing total that Ashton Jeanty put up, he was doing it against better competition every single week. And then when he went up against Texas's defense, Penn State's the number 5 defense in the country this year nationally. Texas is the number 3 defense in the country this year nationally. Cam Scatterbo had more yards at one point in this game, had more yards himself than Texas's offense had.
He was incredible. And it felt like through 2.5 quarters, it almost felt like if you didn't have the stats up the whole time and tracking his production the whole time, and you were just watching the game, to me it felt like, oh, Texas is kind of containing him a little bit through that point. And maybe I was just fooled by the fact that they hadn't scored a touchdown at that point, but it almost felt like, okay, they've done a pretty good job of containing Cam Scatterbo. And then midway through the third quarter, end of the fourth quarter on, he just went off. It felt like he got like 150 of those all-purpose yards that you were talking about, almost 300 all-purpose yards in that short span. Like, and I texted you, man, it feels like even though at that point it was 17-5 or 17-8, I was like, it feels like Scadaboo's wearing Texas down a little bit.
Which is insane because Texas has NFL players at every level.
Yes.
Right? And Texas made a point of, hey, this guy, he's been running people over. He's not going to run us over. And that was, I think, part of the reason that you're not alone in how you felt like, hey, they actually are doing a good job containing him.
He may have had 100 yards through 3 quarters or whatever, which is a good amount, a good number, but he didn't look like he did before against other opponents.
He didn't have those characteristic, like, rumbling, I broke 10 tackles type runs. Because Texas, when they got their hands on him, he usually fell forward and finished forward, but he wasn't just like casting people off, shedding tacklers and things like that, at least not to that point in the game. So I think a lot of us felt the same way. But yes, if you had at that point pulled up the numbers, you'd have been like, oh, wow, he actually has 100 yards. Now he had 100 yards on like 25 carries. Usually that takes him 14 carries, right?
Yeah.
So Texas did a great job of kind of slowing it down and containing it. And then the dam broke, and he finished 30 carries, 143 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 142-yard touchdown pass. And as I already mentioned, 8 catches for 99 yards. So he went out there, and he planted his flag. He backed up the talk that he had been offering all week long.
He did the Heisman pose in the Arizona game, right? Like, or maybe it was against BYU the week before.
I think he finished 5th in the Heisman voting, so it's not like people didn't give him any respect or any love.
Just outside of a finalist, yeah.
But he said, I am the best running back in the country. And if you took a snapshot of these bowl games against top 5 defenses, he was better. He was significantly better than Ashton Jeanty was in this game. And actually, Ashton Jeanty had more support from the passing game than Cam Scadaboo did. You look at those numbers, and the Boise State passing offense produced more than the Arizona State passing offense. And by the way, Cam Scadaboo was 42 yards of that passing offense. Although, look, that ball could have been intercepted. So I'm not going to crown him. I'm not going to give him too much praise on that. He hucked that baby up there, and thankfully his receiver tracked the ball accurately, came back and got it, because that was sailing up there, man. But that was play calling. And another thing about this game, in the first half, the play calling, especially when Arizona State got to the red zone, was so obnoxious, was so difficult to watch. It was a triggering, I think, for a lot of Utah football fans, because it became incredibly predictable. They had 3 red zone trips that resulted in 0 points and still somehow battled this thing into double overtime. That's going to be a painful film session, not necessarily for players, but for the coaching staff that's already taking this film in at Arizona State, seeing how many points they left on the board, seeing how they could have seized control of this game a little bit earlier, or they could have stopped the flood of momentum in Texas's favor at least. I mean, it changes the game completely if you get into the end zone even one time on those fruitless drives.
It really does. And like you said, if you closed your eyes and changed the shade of red, you could think that it was the Utah ASU game, for example, because Utah was how many times they get in the red zone in that game? Like 6 or 7 times and only got 1 touchdown. It was kind of the same thing for ASU until the last 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And I'll just say, going back to how good Cam Scadaboo was, I'm so glad he balled out the way that he did on that national stage. It was he was not, 5th in the Heisman voting for sure. The media who vote on those things, they were watching, but I'm not sure how many of the fans were watching Cam Scadaboo until that game. It's just awesome when guys get their first big opportunity to show out nationally when they actually do, and that's what happened with Cam. And I think it's great for ASU. I think it's great for the Big 12 that happened. Obviously, it would have been way better if they'd have pulled off the win and getting a stop on 4th and 13 in overtime. But But I think even with all that, I think they earned a ton of respect for the Big 12 and certainly a ton of respect for the Sun Devil program.
Well, there was the format of the college football playoff was being pretty criticized, right? There were a lot of folks, especially with what happened in the Boise State, Penn State, and what happened with SMU. There were a lot of folks that were just like, see, we're not doing this right. We expanded this thing, keep everyone engaged, but we're not doing this right. And there were a lot of folks ready to pounce on if Arizona State underperformed here. Don't give conference champions automatic buys. Don't give conference champions automatic inclusion. This is about putting Alabama in. And Alabama, thank you, Alabama, for making it seem like that was a silly argument in the first place. Arizona State was picked to finish dead last in the Big 12 Conference. Arizona State, James, is the thing that all offseason long I'm going to be using to make myself feel better about how it looks for Utah on paper. When Keanu Tanuvasa, who was going to be a captain for your team this year, transfers to the rival school, and you're looking right now at the interior defensive line of the University of Utah. Samote Pepa, gone. He's off to Washington. Keanu Tanuvasa, he's down to BYU. Aliki Vimahi, he's graduated. Junior Tafuna, he's out of here. You're looking at it. A tradition, typically Utah's defensive interior is like death taxes and big, nasty Polynesian dudes playing defensive tackle at the University of Utah. You usually have depth there. You usually have strength there. You look at it on paper right now, and you're like, well, I really like Dallas Vakalahi. I really, really like him. He played a lot as a true freshman, and that's going to benefit him next year. The rest of it is relatively unproven, so we'll see how it goes. Normally, that would cause me to panic, James. But what I'm leaning on, based on the results of what we saw this year, and knowing now how different the landscape of college football is and how often you can flip things on their head, Arizona State was nobody's pick. Not only to win a conference championship, but nobody's pick to give Texas that kind of game. Cam Scadaboo was nobody's pick to be in a Heisman Trophy conversation, even peripherally. Ashton Genty wasn't either. BYU was supposed to be a crap team this year. Their over-under games was at 4.5, and they ended up winning 11 games. So the thing I'm using as a Utah football fan heading into this offseason is that what you see on paper doesn't mean anything. Arizona State proved it all year long, and they proved it again in a game where they have, I think Arizona State has like 4 NFL players on that roster. And by the way, Cam Scadaboo, we're going to see if the NFL likes him or not, because I don't think he's got crazy speed. I don't think Cam Scadaboo's 40 at the combine is going to be anything impressive. They're going to try to turn Cam Scadaboo into a fullback in the NFL. So he's one of those 4, and I don't think anyone's going to view him at the NFL level as like, yeah, he's a day one starter for us. Even though he has that talent, I think that there's a lot of people who are going to be like, I don't know, man.
Because he's, as DP said, he called him a dishwasher on the show today. Like he said tackling Cam Scadaboo looks like tackling a dishwasher running right at you.
I feel like it'd be easier to tackle a dishwasher.
It looks like it is. But at the same time, there are bigger, faster, stronger dudes in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And so then there are even at Texas, certainly. So, this is a guy who has relied on being able to run people over. It doesn't shock me that there's probably NFL scouts out there and head coaches that are like, he's not going to be able to run guys over in the NFL, so I don't know if he's an every down running back, but I would bet on him. Like, the guy's been bet against most of his life as an athlete, and he's delivered like he did, especially this year so far. I would bet on him to be able to do that in the NFL too.
Arizona State has, 3, 4, 5 guys that are eventual Sunday dudes on that roster right now. And what they have done is about, forgive me for being cliche here, what they did this year, what BYU did this year, and even what Colorado did this year was more about culture than it was talent in all of those places. Utah football has buttered its bread with that exact philosophy for years. It still works. It didn't work for you this year. It still works in 2024 in college football. Arizona State did not win a national championship. We never thought they were going to be in a position to win a national championship. It's still a phenomenal season. It is an unbelievable building block type year for Kenny Dillingham, who got the 5-year extension, who got extra money from the athletic department to distribute bonuses how he sees fit among his assistant coaches and things like that. That's a dude who doesn't want to leave Arizona State either. Kenny Dillingham is the next Kyle Whittingham. There's going to be people knocking on his door. Hey, Tennessee's got an opening for you. You want it? Hey, Ohio State's got an opening for you. You want it? And he's going to be like, no, I'm happy here. I like it here. My family likes it here. Kenny Dillingham is going to be a 20-year dude at Arizona State University, which is a problem for Utah and for BYU, but is great if you're in the Valley of the Sun. And it's great if you're one of the people like myself who's been like, dude, Arizona State is a phenomenal football job for the right person. He's finally proving me right 10 years after I started saying it.
Yeah, they finally got the right person. Yeah, how many times have they been pegged as a sleeping giant, and now they're finally pulling through in a year that they were supposed to finish last? Like, insane. Going back to your I'm curious about your latest poll question you put out, though, about the number you have to – what number would you put how much better you have to stand out as you progress from G5 to Power 4 and from the various conferences in Power 4?
And I have to admit this, right? Like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to see, as I compare Ashton Jeanty and Cam Scatterbo, the yardage number and the yards per carry number and the touchdowns number for Ashton Jeanty are gaudy. They're ridiculous. So I have to look at it and say, well, is Cam Scatterbo's year equivalent to that? Because he played against a Power 4 schedule, and he finished with this unbelievable outing against the Texas defense that's got NFL dudes at every level. Is Cam Scatterbo the equal of Ashton Jeanty? Can I adjust those numbers? You have to adjust them like 50%, at least in the yardage total, to give Cam Scatterbo an edge. So is the gap between the Mountain West and the Big 12, is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? What do you think, James?
Man, I think it's probably 20 if I had to say.
Okay,
one of those.
if Ashton Jeanty
I don't know
played,
if it's 30 or more, but it's certainly more than 10%. I think
if Ashton Jeanty played for UCF, who had a great run game this year, if he played for UCF, you could adjust his numbers down 20%.
Yeah, I feel safe saying that.
Or if Cam Scatterbo or R.J. Harvey, who was the great running back for UCF, if they played at Boise State, you could adjust their numbers up 20%.
Yeah.
All right.
It'd still be less than what Ashton Jeanty did against a Mountain West
schedule.
schedule.
Yeah. So Cam Scatterbo, let's see, you had 20% to his 1,700 yards. He still finishes short of what Ashton Jeanty did, right? You add 20% to his touchdown total of 21. You give him another 20%. He's still short of Ashton Jeanty's. If you make Ashton Jeanty come down 20% and Cam Scatterbo go up 20%, then their numbers are kind of the same. The only thing that really gives me pause is the way that they played against top 5 defenses.
Yeah.
Like Ashton, that gives Cam Scatterbo the case.
And both against an SEC top 3 in the nation defense, another against a Big Ten top 5 in the nation defense. Like, you can't say, one was against it was Mountain West ACC, Big 12 ACC. Like, these are supposed to be the big boys in college football. I think it's a pretty good comparison.
All right, so vote on the polls at Real OC Sports. Give me also your New Year's resolutions for Utah football. We're going to get to those in the hot lunch today. 877-353-0700. You can always text us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We love talking to you. The show today and every day is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Les Schwab has the tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever it is that you drive. Stop by the local Les Schwab today. The professionals there get the job done right the first time. Gordy Chiesa to talk a little hoop next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
shoot marketing. A little angry on that putback. Why not?
Little Lowry marketed putback dunk. Loss to the Knicks is the ultimate result there at Madison Square Garden. That sound courtesy of the Smith Entertainment Group. That was Craig Bowler-Jack on the call. Utah Jazz headed the wrong direction, or I guess it's the right direction because you want a high draft pick. Third best lottery odds at 7-25 on the season, at least for now. Talking little NBA basketball with my friend, our resident guru for all things hoop, Gordy Chiesa, who joins us again on the Sean O'Connell Show. Gordy, Happy New Year. How are you?
Oh, see, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
What should the Utah Jazz New Year's resolution be?
To keep playing the young guys through their mistakes and keep developing good habits. Remember, the Jazz right now, Sean, have 49 games left. So that's the reality. And if you can trade one or two of your veteran players that have value, try to trade them to get more assets and then reassess next July 1st again. Because now it's in the sand right now. The Jazz are playing for the future totally. And so if you're Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, those three guys in particular, if they can get a wise draft picks for them or even a younger player, I would do it then.
So it seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that everybody in the NBA now kind of understands how much of a business this is and understands that they are on some level, even if their teammates love them and their coaches love them and even ownership loves them, on some level, in a situation like this one, they are assets. They are tradable. They're contract numbers. They're all these things that kind of reduce your humanity a little bit, but it's just part of the business. Can you maintain a good relationship with your franchise? Can you maintain a good relationship with your front office, knowing that right now you're a chess piece and they view you more as that than they do potentially as like a valued member of the franchise?
It's very unlikely. So what you try to attempt to do is keep talking through the agents, because the agents determine so much of their clients' happiness and how they view it. And the reason why that the manager would talk to the agents, because they have other clients that teams would want on July 1st or the trading deadline. And so it's an open communication. Yeah, that's the bad. Basketball is a great game, terrible business. And that's what you learn. I've been doing this for, 36 years in the NBA. And that's what you learn. And everybody knows that going in, but sometimes it gets cloudy, the messaging.
Yeah, I mean, every job, right? We all work in businesses and like I think radio, I think sports media. It's a wonderful job, but it is a pretty brutal business sometimes. And it's hard not to take things personally. Like if you have a show canceled, if they want to move you to a lesser time slot, whatever it is, it's hard to not take things personally. Are NBA players better at not taking things personally than the average person? Are they worse at it because you got to have some ego to be a great basketball player? What's been your experience?
Worse at it, very much. So even though you're trying to counsel them all the time, they have amnesia, where they're forgetful of it. That's what I call also invisible earmuffs, where they're nodding, yes, I understand it totally, but in reality they don't, because it affects them. It affects their loved ones. They're suddenly going to move to a new team. Oh, by the way, will my teammates like me? Will I be able to fit in? Offensively, will I be the first or second or third option now? On my former team, I was fill the blanks in. And so there's such a great unknown. And anytime in any business, when it's unknown, there's an element of hesitation. Or the flip side is when I hardly played, Sean, and I go to a new team, I'm getting a rebirth of my career. I can't wait to get there. And I use that illustration when in 1,000 years ago, Jeff Hornacek, when he got traded to the Jazz from Philadelphia 76ers, he came in the locker room before we're playing. He flew all day long from Philadelphia. He came into the locker room before the home game that night. He didn't take the physical yet, so he couldn't play. And he hugged all his teammates and hugged the coaches. And he said very simply, "Thank you for trading for me. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here."
Wow. Gordy Chiesa, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We had a conversation earlier in the week, but then on Monday night, the Utah Jazz played the Denver Nuggets, as you're aware. Russell Westbrook, who has a complicated history with Utah Jazz and their fans, against the Jazz, he becomes the third player in NBA history to author a perfect triple-double. No turnovers, 100% shooting from the field and from the stripe. And obviously he's at an advanced age for an NBA player. How impressive is this feat in your mind?
Huge, pretty impressive to do that. And also, don't get the feeling that Russell Westbrook at age 36, he's on the right team where he's less emotional. He's always played hard, but he gets in trouble, especially on away games where he's a lightning rod. However, with the Nuggets, because Jokic is such a great, unbelievable talent, is that, and at age 36 is a level of maturity, his role is tremendous. And so what he did is hard to do, have a perfect triple-double. And I'm personally glad for him. And Denver, they're trending up, and they need every ounce of that for them to try to climb in the standings. And there's so many triple-doubles recently. The game yesterday in the Garden, it was Josh Hart got back-to-back triple-doubles for the Knickerbockers. Yesterday, the Jazz, he gets 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 12 assists. Sean, that's a yeoman's work. And let's add that one component of that. Josh Hart-type players, he was the 30th pick of the draft back in 2017. And the reason why I'm making that point about it, where everyone is so lottery happy as far as lottery, et cetera, and that's a valid point. However, and this is however, there's other good players in the league that were either undrafted or picked late in the first round that are doing serious things as far as triple-double. And Josh Hart's a classic example.
How much Bryce James have you watched?
Okay, I have not. So I know who he is, obviously. He's going to Arizona, but I have not seen him play really, truly. So help me out.
Okay, well, that's why I asked you, because I think it's an unreasonable expectation for everyone to know exactly what his game is like when he's 16 years old. All I know about him is like you, he's the son of LeBron James. He committed to Arizona. He's taller than Bronny, so that sometimes means you got a higher upside in the game of basketball. But I don't have anything else for you on that because I haven't watched a lot of them. I'm not in that AAU talent evaluation circuit.
No, very much. Now, I know Bronny James is really a combination point guard, and if the world's almost perfect for him, he would be eventually a solid backup guard. Solid backup guard where someday he's playing 23 minutes a game, averaging 9.4 points per game and 3.7 assists and 1.2 steals, and that'd be tremendous. Now, LeBron is a whole different person, so and I know it's the same last name, but it's different as far as skill set and also physical talent. That we've never seen someone like LeBron James play this long at the highest elite level ever. The only guy somewhat comparable was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that was an all-star until age 42. But he didn't do the heavy lifting LeBron's doing right now with the Laker franchise.
And he's 40 now. He's officially 40 years old now. He did say that he thinks he could play another 5 to 7 years. Now, look, he already got to do the thing. He checked the box. He got to play in a game with his son, with his eldest son, Bronny. His younger son is headed off to college next year. Maybe he's a one-and-done type player. Maybe he's there for a couple years. If LeBron intends to play with Bryce, I mean, there's going to be a team that'll give him a roster spot until he's 45. Is he going to be able to maintain this? Because if I'd asked you the same question at 35 and you'd said, no, I don't think so, I'd have believed you. Now he's 40 and he's still playing. He's a top 20 player, certainly in the NBA still, top 25 player in the NBA, and he's 40. So can he be that when he's 42, 43, 45?
Yes. Yeah, very similar, yes. Almost like a Tom Brady type. The answer is yes. He takes care of himself, unbelievable. And a lot of it's the mental part. So I know your body does break down eventually. So far, it has not. However, it's the mental part, the focus. So when you're that age group, your teammates really uplift you. By being around these younger guys, they make you laugh in a good way, and they rejuvenate your career as far as wanting to be there and to help them and also shepherd their own career, these young guys. So a huge factor will be who are the young guys on LeBron James' team that will help him keep enthusiasm about the game. So the mental is so much more important than the physical part of it.
When you're coaching, when you're talking to guys that are, in that 35 plus range, and it becomes a decision, hey, I'm thinking about retiring. It becomes a conversation. I might not be in it for this much longer. What counsel do you as a coach, you as like a confidant and a friend, offer to players that are reaching that advanced stage? LeBron is different. He's a different animal. He hasn't slowed down the same way a lot of guys do when they get to that age. But the typical mortal, when they start to slow down a little bit, how do you counsel guys in a leadership position?
So that'd be Chris Paul right now for the San Antonio Spurs. You would counsel them saying that, are you willing to accept a slightly lesser role as far as having the ball in your hands, playing time, and not being the main focus of either first or second option? And that, are you willing to come off the bench, if not all the time, at least some of the time? And those are the open-ended discussions that you have to have with the players. And then by being around that person for X amount of years and knowing his agent and his loved ones that are with him all the time, if they're willing to accept that, then it could work out as you mentor younger players. So that's Chris Paul. Chris Paul turns 40 this May. He's mentoring Victor Wembanyama and all the other guys. He still likes to play. Now, he's starting for the Spurs, which is a factor, but he's not the main option. Now it's Victor Wembanyama and all the other players there. So Chris would be the perfect example right now.
What's your list today, Gordy?
My list today, let's go three-point happy. So this is a current list, Sean. The total three-pointers made leaders this 24-25 season. So the total made threes. It's a short list. I kept it short as far as only 11 players, so the top 10. Quickly, court geometry. The corner three is 22 feet. The extended arc line is 23 feet, 9 inches. And Sean, the old ABA line, that wonderful red, white, and blue ball, the ABA three-point shot was 25 feet. Now, the reason I'm saying that, because there's been some discussion about making the NBA line much further out. So we'll see what the rules committee, what they do. Here we go. The top 10 three-pointers made this season. Number 10, Jordan Poole, Wizards. He's made 98 threes. Number 9, a two-way tie. LaMelo Ball of the Hornets and Cameron Johnson of the Nets, Nets, have made 99. Number 8, Steph Curry of the Warriors has made 109 triples, including shooting 40.1 from three this season. Number 7, Derek White of the Celtics has made 112. Number 6, Jason Tatum of the Celtics have made 116. Number 5, Peyton Pritchard of the Celtics has made 122. And what makes with Peyton Pritchard interesting, he's made all his 122 triples all off the bench. Number 4, the Jazz play them this Saturday in South Beach in Florida. Tyler Hero of the Heat is 4th with the NBA this season. He's made 123. Number 2, tied, Donovan Mitchell of the Cavaliers and Malik Beasley of the Pistons have made 125 made threes. And the number 1 player in the NBA this year in the most three-point shots made is Anthony Edwards of the T-Wolves with 129 made trifectas with a percentage of 41.5%. Quickly, in Jazz basketball, who's the current leader of the most made triples this 24-25 season? It's Larry Markkinen. He's made 76 triples so far this year. Thus, that's my list.
Love it. And that's obviously a big direction the game has headed. Larry Markkinen, hot shooting big man. It's so wild when we're talking about a guy, pushing 7 feet and also leading a team in three-point shooting.
Yeah, very much. And again, but so the question is always, Sean, do players that are ill-advised take too many threes. That's a debate, not the knockdown shooters. It's the guys that you know in your heart of hearts when they take a shot from three with no really footwork or any flow rhythm, it's going to be ill-advised a miss. Those are ones that we're trying to eliminate some of those three-point shots to make the game more fluid and more popping the ball on perimeter. That's the question, and that's coaching, and that's also what listening.
That's Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA insider and friend of the program. Happy New Year, sir. Always appreciate you.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Great stuff from Gordy Chiesa. All right, the hot lunch is coming next at Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700. Give me your New Year's resolutions for Utah football. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700. James, I made a mistake. I'm not wearing my Wooden Grail hat today. WoodenGrail.com. Check out the highest quality, locally made, incredible hats. I got the U hat with it's the red suede material. I love the corduroy hats, the snapbacks. They've got a bunch of new stuff cooking for 2025, a little bird told me. And actually, now's a good time. Go to woodengrail.com, sign up, subscribe for the updates. So when they drop these new hats, you have an opportunity to get on them before everyone else does. Also, gift cards always available. So if the hat enthusiast in your life is pretty picky and you're worried about choosing one that they will happily wear and that they will love, you don't have to choose the hat. Just go grab them the gift card at woodengrail.com. All right, a little hot lunch here, and I asked people for New Year's resolutions for Utah football. You could tell the atmosphere of that fan base right now is not necessarily ideal because expectations are understandably a little bit lower than what we might expect. This one, Coach Stallions, all right, we got maybe a resolution for you. A little woosah, a little goosefraba, right? A little deep breath relaxation technique.
Goosefraba.
He says his resolution, spread more hatred and animosity among the fan base on Twitter. We're bringing cyberbullying back in 2025.
I have another resolution that'll be good for him and it sounds like everyone else online. Maybe he just stays off the internet for a little while.
Don't be on the internet
in 2020, at least for a good chunk of 2025. If he wants to bring back cyberbullying, maybe that's the resolution he needs.
Brickman Williams, make a bowl game. Low expectations. I don't even. That's fine. Crawl before you run. Crawl before you walk. Walk before you run. Right. When you have a bad season like this one, and there's a lot of flux on the roster, and people are moving out to, even play for your rival school, and you got a bunch of different individuals coming in, then you can start there with your resolution, your goal, right? If you're 50 pounds overweight, you don't say my resolution is to lose all 50 pounds that I'm overweight. You say, I'm going to try to lose 10 pounds. Then when you get to 10, you could be like, you know what? Let's keep going. Utah doesn't have to fully hit a reset button because it's the same coaching staff. It's hopefully the same culture you've grown accustomed to, but there is plenty of reset going on. And the encouraging thing for me with that is the reset comes with a new quarterback. And the quarterback situation was the problem for Utah last year. You had talent everywhere else. You had playmakers that were underutilized, unfortunately, and some of those guys have chosen to now depart the program. But at the end of the day, if you can solve your quarterback problem, a lot of other things get easier. And I'm very, very optimistic that Devin Dampier will be a drastic improvement over what you saw from inconsistent quarterback play, all because of the injuries. If you're making a resolution, and resolutions suggest that it's something you can control, so I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but the resolution for everybody in that program is to just maintain health. Injuries devastated this year even more than they did last year. Or I should say 2 seasons ago now. And 2 seasons ago, it was pretty bad. Bring back the Ferrari Batari. Use the extra year afforded by your eligibility with JUCO time. Let's go. And then everyone stay healthy. 877-353-0700 if you want to text in to our Dish Pros text line, your New Year's resolution for Utah football. Ben Scott says, have a good strength and conditioning program because injuries the last 2 years have been a problem. I get really confused when we start talking about this because, James, help me jog my memory. Can we remember anything previous to 2023 where we kept looking at it and just like, gosh, this team can't stay healthy. Gosh, this team has a serious injury problem.
Yeah. You had Tyler Huntley keep getting injured, but that was more of a Tyler Huntley thing than an injury, than the strategy the team's going about being the problem. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Because the strength and conditioning staff is the same as it was 20 years ago. And yes, they do things differently, and they've helped evolve this program from what it was as a Mountain West power into now, hopefully, a Big 12 power. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel there. Doug LSI is one of the best in the country. His assistant staff are some of the best in the country. And to say, hey, well, obviously there's something going wrong with strength and conditioning. Okay, but I mean, it's the same guys that you had through the Sugar Bowl year and that you had through the Pac-12 championship years and that you had through a bunch of really good years where injuries were not a problem. So I don't know if it's a luck situation or if it really is a strength and conditioning situation or it's a dang Under Armour shoes situation. I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe just switch to Nike or Jordan brand, and that might be the New Year's resolution.
James, I would genuinely throw a party for the listeners if that happened.
All right,
I would
I'm
invite
writing
them
it down.
I'd invite them to your house.
My house.
Okay. I'd throw a party at your house. I'd order some Jimmy John's.
How gracious of you to invite people to my house.
You're welcome.
That's amazing. Yes.
You know how much cooler? Like, automatically the team store, everything is so much better.
Yes.
Ugh. Don't do that to me. Don't throw that at me.
No, but I think it's definitely fair to say New Year's resolution, less injuries to key players, significantly less injuries to key players, better injury luck. But I'm with you. I'm not sure that it needs to be. I'm not sure that it has to be that the strength and conditioning program is failing. It's probably more luck than anything else.
This good point coming in from 6754. Utah had to start a running back at corner in 2021. Injuries have been a problem pretty consistently. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. That did happen.
I'm with you, though. I think bowl game needs to be a minimum, right?
Yes.
But it almost feels like 8 wins need to be a minimum, too. Not just barely getting to a bowl game, 6 wins, 7 wins even, but 8 wins, a win over BYU even better, a win over your rival even better. Just they need a reset in a way that just the bad taste from this year in particular, but last year too, just completely gets wiped out. A palate cleansing year. And I don't know that you need more than 8 wins, especially if that comes with, if one of those wins is over BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. I don't know if you need more than that to be a good enough palate cleansing kind of year to the point where the culture feels like it's back to where it was when you were winning Pac-12 championship games or Pac-12 championships, and to the point where guys aren't just going to be looking at the portal because they're disappointed with the way the season turned out.
Okay, this is also coming from a tweet. Love the interaction from our listeners at Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700. Then we'll take a break. We'll talk with Sean Mooney. But do we think that Kyle Whittingham is just waiting for a high note to walk out on? Is that the only thing that's keeping him in the program right now? That seems to be kind of a sentiment publicly. I don't know how accurate it is because, I don't know how much he cares about walking out on a high note. I don't know how much he cares about the perception. It could be a ton. It could be zero. I genuinely don't know. But there's an assumption among the fan base that he's ready to go. He just wants to go out better than what we saw this past season. Is that fair, James? Are you ready for that?
I think it's fair to say that that's the assumption, and I think that it's not completely unfair to think that. I think that it's more accurate to say it's less about for him and it's more about for setting up the program and Morgan Scalley up for some success, having a season that you're not going to have a mass exodus of key players in the transfer portal. That what I was just saying, if you can at least achieve that 8 wins, win over BYU, bowl game, you would hope you'd be able to retain enough key players that you feel comfortable handing the reins over to Morgan Scalley and saying, okay, he's going to have a good chance at success here.
That was the question from a listener. What kind of season does he have to walk away? And that's what I said. I said 8 wins and a win over BYU. Honestly, it could be 4 wins if one of those is over BYU. I think that might be the number one thing.
Maybe it's just beating BYU.
I think that might be the number one thing for Coach Witt. He just can't go out losing to BYU. He can't have his last contest against BYU be a loss. So you gotta figure it out quickly if he's going to retire anytime soon. But yeah, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to Coach Witt pretty soon and get some candor from him about like what's keeping you in the head coach's seat. We'll see. All right, Sean Mooney's going to join us next. Talk a little Runnin' Utes. Utah basketball now in Big 12 play. Sean Mooney, color analyst on those broadcasts, joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show. You're listening to ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of the Utah ESPN Radio Network.
Utah's got an interesting lineup out there. It's not sure where the points are going to come from. Ezra kicks it wide side. Here's a three by Madsen, and that's a bullseye. Mason Madsen.
That's the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, calling a Mason Madsen three-point shot. That was a Tuesday game and a loss to Baylor in Waco, as the Runnin' Utes are now in the throes of Big 12 conference play, the deepest and best basketball conference in college hoop, I believe. We'll see what Sean Mooney thinks about it, color analyst on the Utah radio broadcast, guest for the first time on the Sean O'Connell Show. Sean, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Sean, man. How are you? You spell your name correctly, by the way. I'm excited to talk to you.
That's right. I say the same thing to everyone. When they ask me, how do you spell Sean? I say, I spell it the right way. It's an Irish name. I spell it the right way, the Irish way.
Thank you very much. And we both have Irish names. I was an O'Mooney, and then they changed me to Mooney. So I think we're meant to be together. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, unfortunately, for the next 15 minutes, I am the second most intelligent and informed Irish Sean on my own show, which is it is. I
don't know about that. That's not true. Yeah, I mean, goodness, that's one of the few threes that we actually made, Sean. You know, we didn't make many. Our starters were not great in that Baylor game. That team, obviously, top 25 team. They're really good off the dribble, which is what we've struggled with a little bit this year. You know, in the Iowa game, we were right there, and they have three players that can take it off the dribble. And then Baylor turned us over a ton in the second half, which was, you know, an emphasis from the coaching standpoint. We just couldn't quite get over the hump. Now, I mean, obviously winning on the road in the Big 12 is tough. And I think you're right. I think the Big 12 is right at the top. I think the SEC is right there with them, arguably maybe a little better top to bottom this year.
So it's going to be tough sledding moving forward. And I guess that begs for me the question, is this team what they're going to be? Or how much upward mobility, how much movement in the positive direction can you see once you've started conference play and you're in the kind of this grind of a regular season? You are who you are, or you can still improve?
Man, I mean, we should all stop right now if we can't improve. And like, really, you know, and I'm not saying that lightly. Like, I do think they can still improve. Our point guard production in the last game was we struggled, and I really like Miro and I really like Mike. So this is not a detriment to them, but they were like combined 1 for 19 with 5 assists. In this league in particular, you've got to have good point guard play. We'll see that all year. So we're going to get that with this next team, Texas Tech coming in, who we'll talk about. But I think we've got to get it there. Miro's still basically a freshman. You know, he didn't play much at Baylor. Mongolian Mike did play, but I don't know if he played the point at Dayton or San Francisco as much. And so I think we need more out of them. And I mean, Sean, it's so fun, man. Like everyone's been talking about the Big 12, but not until you're actually in that environment do you know how good it is. Like Baylor's environment is really good, and everyone coming to town, fans, even if you don't want to come see our team, which you should, they're going to get better. To answer your question, come watch these teams play, and hopefully we're going to be competitive against them.
What's Caleb Lohner's role going to be? He's only played 5 games, obviously. Is he on basketball legs again, or is he still still a football guy for now? How long does it take for him to get back to being what he started out his college athletic career at?
Yeah, good question. So I think Caleb's there. So Caleb's not a shooter. He took a 3 in one of our games and kind of looked at Coach Smith and said, "I'm so sorry." I think it was late in one of the games that we were playing. He is really the perfect kind of role player, right? Because he's very active. He's super athletic. We know what he did in his football role. Amazing, you know. Other than Manny Hendricks, and not everyone can just go play football that plays basketball. He's gonna try to put rim pressure. Every time he gets a catch, he's going to drive if he can. Maybe not the best passer off the drive. I mean, but he's going to, and then he's going to get offensive rebounds, and he's going to fit in nicely. We have a good problem, Sean. We're deep. We can go 10 or 11. You saw us playing Baylor. Thank goodness the last 12 minutes of that game we were better than we were the first 20 minutes. But Caleb Lohner's going to do exactly what you think he should do. He's not a guy who's going to come out and give you a bunch of points. He's going to get offensive rebounds. He's going to defend really well. He's super twitchy. He's going to hard hedge, which means, on a ball screen, he's going to come out and put pressure on the ball.
Sean Mooney, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking a little running Utes hoop as they are in Big 12 play. It'll be Texas Tech and then Iowa State. It does not seem to get easier really at any point of this Big 12 season. Let's talk about Texas Tech coming up in a couple of days. Where are they most dangerous?
So they have a kid, this is embrace the change, right? That's college athletics nowadays. They have 5 new faces on that squad, and one of them is JT Toppin. He was the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year out of New Mexico. He's a lefty. And he's really good. He's a double-double guy. He was hurt and did not play for 5 games, but they just played UCF, which, according to the NCAA evaluation tool, the net ranking, it shouldn't have been a game, and I think Texas Tech was favored by quite a few. UCF went into Texas Tech and beat them. And McCaslin, their coach, he took them to the NCAA tournament in his first year. He came from North Texas. And North Texas had won an NIT championship. Texas Tech goes with 2 guys that are really good. So Toppin, and then another one, Darius Williams. They call him D5. And they both can post up and they can score. And they have the best shooter probably in the country, and Chance McMillan. Sorry, my dog is barking. Go inside.
We're dog friendly on this program. No worries.
Okay, thanks.
So what do you throw at those guys defensively when you've got a couple of bigs that can hurt you down low, and then you've got the best shooter in the country? What do you do defensively against a team like that?
Yeah, good question. So, you definitely have to show different things, but one of the things I think you want to do with the JT Toppin, I just watched the UCF game. They didn't double him at all. Definitely, this is an obvious one, right? So if a guy's a lefty, typically he goes to his right shoulder really well. So you want to try and stay high side, take away his right shoulder. Don't let him get where he wants to be on the floor. And then when you double and cross your legs and with your hands up so it's hard for him to make a pass out of it. I think you probably need to defend him with the double. And then the other guys, basically, Sean, it's backside. So this is in all sports. If you're on the weak side, the ball's on the other side. If you're not watching your player on the other side, you can't all watch. This Texas Tech team, they're very efficient at scoring inside, 51% from inside, and I think 43% from outside. So defensively, you just got to be sound in your principles. Coach Smith calls it stance, vision, and there's one other thing, but I think it's communication. Stance, vision, and communication.
All right, so if you can get past Texas Tech, you're rewarded with a team that right now is ranked 3rd in the country on the road.
Yeah.
So I know that the players and coaches have to take these things one game at a time. In our roles, we don't. We can look at the next week. We can look at the next month.
That's right.
Iowa State looming. I guess you hope that you're moving the right direction against Texas Tech, but then that is a game where you probably find out where you stand.
Yeah. Really, so each team we're playing, right, is an NCAA tournament team. Like you said, this is a really good league. And Iowa State, here's the thing, and all these teams do this, Sean. So Baylor turned us over and turned those opportunities into easy buckets. They got a lot of easy scores. Texas Tech does the same thing. They turn you over and get easy scores. Well, Iowa State is like the Death Star with this. They are so good at turning teams over. 2 of the best guards in the country, and apparently Hilton, I think it's called Hilton North, is the loudest place in the entire Big 12. I don't know about Allen Fieldhouse, and Bill's going to be mad at me that I'm not giving Allen Fieldhouse all the love, but he'll give me a little bit of what when I see him next. But I think as a competitor, Sean, come on, let's quit. You and I are supposed to talk about the Big 12, right? But if I'm playing, oh my gosh, bring every one of these teams on. I cannot wait to play them. No more talk from the athlete standpoint. Let's just play and see what we're made of.
All right, so as you look at the roster, as you look at the makeup for Utah, where they have to try to match up against a loaded Texas Tech starting lineup that are all newcomers, like you said, and you have to take on an Iowa State team with 2 of the best guards, and college basketball is so very guard-centric. When you look at the roster for Utah basketball, is it being deployed the way that you would deploy if you're on this team or you're the head coach of this team? Are the rotations, the minutes, the starting lineup, like is Mongolian Mike and his length being used the right way? Where can they make improvements?
Yeah, so really good question. And so because they're deep, that's the kind of question that you get, and it's a good question. So they've been starting Mason and Gabe together, and let's just talk. Since Eastern Washington, Gabe has been struggling. He had 28 against Eastern Washington since then, and we know he's number one on everyone's board. So I would say that I like what we did against Baylor because we kind of went with our bigs and Lawson. And Lawson had a heck of a game against Iowa. Basically, they gave up Lawson at the rim, and then he did a good job of scoring. And then we went back to 5 out, which we were really good at early in the year when KD came in, Keanu Dodd, and Mike came in. And one of the problems with picking and choosing who's playing is each week in practice, the kids kind of put themselves forward, right, Sean? So maybe they have a really good practices that week, or they don't, and they're not dialed in. That really is what you end up doing, I think, as a coach, is figuring out where your kids are each week and then plugging them into the best of your ability and the best of their ability to be successful, because each team we're playing is going to be a little different. It's a hard question to answer. I was roundabout in my answer.
Sean Mooney for another minute or two here talking Utah basketball. I was there in Big 12 play, and a couple very tough matchups coming not only this upcoming week, but after that. Big picture stuff. We've been obviously focused on football for so long, and now Utah football's in an off season, and they've got this transfer portal situation and the NIL stuff. The same thing is affecting college basketball. And I think that college basketball, because of the smaller rosters, because of the nature of the game and how much one person can have such an impact on the outlook of a team and on a season, I think it's even more significant. The NIL movement and the transfer portal movement is even more significant in the college basketball world. But in football, we're just talking about, hey, you got to have some guardrails. You got to try to put this genie back in the bottle somehow. Give me your perspective on the basketball front, because we have not yet had this conversation.
Yeah, and this is such a tough conversation. And talk about the kid from BYU. Apparently, he's making a lot of money. They're going to give him a lot of money. I mean, the NIL is really good. I'm really glad the kids are making money off of their brand, and their brand is a part of the bigger brand at a university, and that makes me happy as a former student athlete. These kids are getting something that I think they deserve. But I obviously, if I run a business actually, and if I try to run my business the way we are running NIL, I wouldn't be in business. I just think there's got to be an end, and hopefully that occurs in March 2025, when maybe the NCAA can step back in and we can say, hey, this is 15 to 22 million if you want to spend it. And there's got to be the guardrails are a great way to put it, Sean. I agree with the guardrails. So maybe you get X amount at tier 1, and you get X amount at tier 2, and you get X amount at tier 3, and there's got to be established tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. None of this crazy tier 1, plus. It's a really tough conversation, and something's got to change. It's gone off the edge. There are no guardrails right now.
It's wild because, it's become pro sports, but in pro sports, there are structures in place to protect both player and franchise. There are collective bargaining agreements, and there's all these things. There's all these things that kind of regulate what is in college sports now, an unregulated wild system that
it's crazy.
And it's lovely to hear the story of, AJ DeBonsa is going to be given, life-changing wealth right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that's great, but that's also such an outlier. We do it every year on the show. We talk about, all right, 1,500 people entered the transfer portal from a D1 school, and 500 of them got scholarships somewhere else. And it's like, whoa.
It's a big deal, Sean. That statement right there, you need to talk about that as much as you can, because kids don't know. And listen, here's one of the problems. Agents, people in their inner circle are in their ears telling them crazy things like, you should be getting 15 shots a game, just talking about basketball. You should be getting all this time. They should run the offense through you. This is crazy. If we could do anything, we would help counsel these kids to understand that this lifetime of what's ahead of them is not basketball. Take advantage of your circumstances right now, but let's really prep you for life. I think it used to be called getting an education, and there's a lot to getting an education and being a part of a community. And, we need to get back to that if we can. And we don't even talk about them as student athletes anymore, which we need to, because that's what they are.
Yeah, it's wild. I got real mad when we started this thing. I'm for student athletes getting compensation in a true NIL environment where you're actually you've presented your value, and now like a company wants to use you as an endorser. I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. I got real mad as a former walk-on. I got real mad when everyone started this conversation talking about how worthless and how meaningless the compensation of a scholarship was. Because I'm like, I promise you that in itself is pretty life-changing, because I didn't have it. And trying to be an athlete while you're working a job at a bar until 2 and 3 a.m., not the easiest thing. And we jumped off with all of this started with us pretending like the $100,000 a year education was meaningless.
It's ridiculous. And from one walk-on to another, when Coach Majerus came in to practice and told me that I was going to get a partial scholarship, I about died. I was living on top ramen and beans and peanut butter, and that meant I could get some chop suey Louie. Yeah. And I was so excited. And I had a free education, which I agree, Sean, I agree wholeheartedly. We need to go back and reframe what we're talking about. I don't know if we can now. I don't know. Maybe it's too late, but I agree with you. And let's place value on other things besides just that big contract that a kid's getting or whatever that is.
Well, it's going to be fascinating these next few months, like you said, when we get revenue sharing. Most likely revenue sharing comes into this NCAA environment, and whether or not a one-time transfer becomes actually enforceable as a one-time transfer, or we're just doing one-year contracts every year with all these guys. But it's a wild environment, and you're right there in the thick of it, Sean. So enjoy.
Yes, I'm wearing this shirt that says "Embrace the Change" the whole year. I'm wearing it.
All right. Appreciate your time. Great talking to you. Let's do this more often, all right?
I love it. Yeah, thanks, Sean. Have a good day. Happy New Year.
Sean Mooney, color analyst on the Utah basketball broadcast, alongside the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. All right, we'll jump back into some football discussion, NFL and college football playoffs with the Utah legend. Eric Weddle joins us on the other side. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in the Utah football and NFL legend, everyone's favorite number 32, Eric Weddle. E-Dub, how are you, sir?
OC, what's up? What's up? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's a great day to be alive and talk some shop, talk some ball.
How were the holidays for the Weddle clan?
Holidays are good, man. It's always busy for the Weddle clan. So we jetted up to Utah for 3 days and got some snowboarding in, and now we're already back in San Diego because we got practice and games tonight and the rest of the weekend. So, you know, we live it up, man. We live it up.
Are you a New Year's resolution guy?
You know, I mean, I kind of am. I challenged myself to read 5 books last year, and I think I ended up reading like 9. So that was one of them.
That's
good. I don't make too crazy ones. I got a few that I want to get done this upcoming year, but nothing crazy. I don't like to get too outlandish. I think my regular day life and my routine, I think that's a good way to live, so I don't need to do anything crazy.
What's on the reading list? Well, like of those 9 books, is that all like, are you like the self-help guru type guy? Are you getting like the financial books? What do you read?
No. I'm in, like, I read the whole Dune series, so like those type, like futuristic sci-fi type books. I'm in what am I reading right now? I can't even remember. That's not a very good memory on my. It'll come to me of what I mean. It's a 1,000-page book, and there's like 3 of them. I'm like 3/4 of the way through the first book. It'll come to me, but it's a well-known series. Hans put it on me, so
nice. That's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, a little fiction. I gotta send you a couple copies of my books and then get your endorsement on those.
Oh, I will for sure read it.
All right.
From you're the legend, not me.
All right. The college football playoff happening right now, and so far we get a delayed game kicking off in a couple hours here, hour and a half here. But right now, I was dead set on this idea, and I'm usually wrong when I get really dead set on something. Like having a bye in the first round of the playoff is going to be such a massive advantage because if you don't have it, you got to win an extra game against a top 15, top 12 type team, and then you got to win 3 more after that. But so far, 3 of the 4 teams with the first round byes have come out flat, have not looked great, have lost their games, and we'll see what happens later today with the Sugar Bowl. So, what's your stance? Is the bye something that you should still be seeking, and like obviously it's a big reward, or are we learning that rust is worse than rest is good?
Yeah, I mean it's you're gonna have to maybe go through a couple years of this to look at the analytics of it. I know in the NFL it was always paramount because you're so beat up. You got old guys. I don't think that's really that important as it would be in the NFL because the young guys, you want to keep them in rhythm, you want to keep them in routine. You don't want extra time with 18 to 21-year-olds. Well, now they're like 28-year-olds, so they're more adults than professionals. So I don't know. I think we all thought those games would be competitive in the first round. They were laughers, so that just gave more momentum and got, for a team like Ohio State, who was awful at the end of the season, now they found themselves because they played a cupcake, and now they look unbeatable, which is way, kind of how the playoff is supposed to work. So team gets hot, finds themselves, and now they look like the team that can't be beat, which they looked outstanding. So I don't know. I don't know. I always like to keep the rhythm when I was in the league and keep the momentum that we built. The one time we did have a bye, we lost the first round. So that's my one experience with it. And but other teams obviously take to the advantage.
Did you get a chance to watch Texas, Arizona State?
Yeah, I watched the whole game. Game.
I'm glad that I waited to ask you about this because as a defender, your perspective, the targeting non-call, even after the review, I was kind of fine with it because it was a face mask to face mask. It was a head up tackle. Yeah. He wasn't launching. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. The spirit of the rule was to get rid of headhunting and guys getting concussions. And that was a guy making a play in a bang-bang moment. But it was massively impactful. And by the letter of the law, it was certainly targeting. And the referees went back, reviewed, and said, nah.
Yeah.
Tell me how you feel about it. Because at one point, you were that guy making that play.
I was. It was 1,000% targeting. but I'm actually I didn't want the game to be decided by that play. So I was happy that they didn't call it and they upheld it, even though it should have been. Okay. The reality is the playoff didn't want Arizona State in there. They wanted Texas. Okay. And that's what it comes down to. They wanted that brand. They want them in the semifinals. And you can't tell me anything other than that's why, because that is 1,000% a targeting, even though it was an unbelievable fit up. I would teach my son to play that way and do that tackle. So I'm not saying it was dirty. It's teach tape, face on face, but he is defenseless and it's helmet to helmet. And I can get why they say, oh, it's not the crown, it's not. It doesn't matter. It's a targeting because he's defenseless and you hit him up above the shoulders. So reality is Arizona State had plenty more chances to win the game. They didn't. You don't win the game when you have a 4th and 13 as a post player and you're sitting in the post and let the post get behind you for a touchdown side of game. So they had plenty of ops. I'm not going to blame it on that. But as an Arizona State fan, you could have some gripes about that. And I really think the powers that be wanted Texas to give them every advantage, and it does. You can't give me reasons why people don't think that way and why those things happen, because you have plays like this. You're just like, how do you not call that, especially after review?
Well, okay, I love putting on a conspiracy theory hat, but it falls apart for me when I have to believe now that referees are being told, "Hey, get Texas in there and make the calls."
Sean, OC, come on now. What do you think they're being said? You don't think they're being told maybe at times whether to call a call or not when it's under review? Come on. Like, it's not that outlandish.
Okay.
And I
hold on.
I believe it happens at times.
So he goes over, he puts the headphones on, and the booth says, yeah, this one's above us. It's not a target.
How do you explain them not calling it then?
Well, because I think earlier in the game, you had an interception by Arizona State where the non-interceptor, right, the other safety, launched, his shoulder hit the guy in the chin, and it was off the ball, and it could have negated a huge play for Arizona State. It could have it could have been a huge problem.
I remember my kickback was he was out of control going for the ball, and his body and momentum hit him, and it wasn't any forcible contact. It was just his shoulder body out of control. This was a specific play going for the guy, even though I loved it, okay? Mind you, I do want to explain that. It was targeting. So there's nothing you could say that could tell me that they just reviewed it and, no, it's not targeting. No, there's powers that be that control this thing.
All right. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't really. I don't really care at the end of the day. But I do think you can't. How do you not call it? Like, give me a reason why you didn't call it. Like, I want to hear the ref's explanation. I want to hear the organization say why that wasn't targeting.
Yeah. No. You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's fair. Is Cam Scattaboo a Sunday guy?
I didn't realize how small he was. I don't really know. Like, of course, he's a football player, and I love watching him. I think the limitations, he's like a Deuce Vaughn, right? A year or two, Kansas State running back. What has he done in the NFL? I just think the limitations. Can he pass pro? Like, that would be my first concern. He would get ran through.
There's plenty of 5'10" running backs, 5'11" running backs in the NFL, aren't there?
Is he 5'10"? I think he's like 5'8".
Well, he's listed at 5'11", so I always subtract an inch or two.
No way he's 5'11". No way. He's like 3 inches shorter than his head coach, and I know he's like 5'10". So I don't know. I think he's a baller. I just think some of the limitations in the sense of the physical nature. Can he play? Yeah. I would just worry. Everything comes down as a running back. You can be amazing at all these things. If you can't pass pro, how are you going to play? Because that limits when you're on the field, that limits what you can do offensively. And when you're in the game, they know what you're doing because you're either getting the ball or you're releasing 5 out, which is a huge advantage for the defense.
Eric Weddle, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Switching things over to the NFL real quick. It wasn't so long ago that the owners had to go to the table in collective bargaining and say, hey, we want another game. We want a longer regular season. They wanted 18 regular season games. They got 17. The players got a little bit more money out of it. I think everyone left that negotiation happily. You'd have to tell me as a member of the Players Association. But is this what the owners thought they were going to get? Because week 17 of NFL football is now get-right week for all the starters. Everyone who's clinched a playoff spot, everyone who's an important player is shutting it down, and I guess the revenue and the television revenue are still there, but you're not getting great games and full-strength rosters at this time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, 18 games is coming, so that's always been the end goal for the owners, and it's going to happen because the Players Association will never unite and fight against what is most important for the players. So that's going to happen, and it's the last week of the season is everything is set in stone. The worst teams are all playing their 4-stringers, and the guys that made the playoffs already are figuring out what's the best way to maximize the opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Is that resting guys like the Rams? They're going to rest majority of their whole team because that's what's best in their opinion, along with the Eagles with Saquon. I don't know. I have a real issue with that. If I'm Saquon, if I'm that offense, you have a chance to be a part of history, and you're going to sit. I don't know. If I'm the offensive line, if I'm the core, I'm going in there, sitting down with Coach Sirianni and saying, "Hey, man, we're going to do this whether you like it or not, because we want to be part of history."
Okay, let me ask you how much a part of history you really are, because if you can break a record, but you only break that record because you got an extra game, did you really break the record?
You broke the record. It's not my problem. It's not my fault they added games. I just do what I'm coached to do and play. And if I get to play 17 games and there's a record to be broken, that's going to be the record from here on. So in 50 years from now, they're not going to say how many games you played. They're going to look how many total yards you had in rushing.
How much? I mean, obviously that matters to you. Is that a typical thing in an NFL locker room? Guys, like, your contract matters. Being a Super Bowl champion matters. Does holding records in the record book matter to players that much?
I mean, you're talking about a record that very seldom has anyone been close to. Like over the last 20 years, you had Adrian Peterson crack 2,000. It's Chris Johnson cracked 2,000. I think Jamal Lewis cracked it. Like, it's – and the way the game's played, running backs and running game is not the forefront of offensive philosophy now. So I would, because I am a historian. I love the games. I respect the game. And it's a team, like a team award. Like, you would be a part of this, right? Like, I don't know. I would be pushing to play if I was Saquon. Not, like, he probably won't have a chance. You don't know what the future holds. He could get hurt tomorrow and never be the same. And you have a chance at being a part of history and everyone on that team being a part of it. Like, I don't know. I would want to push for it.
All right, I saved the worst for last. So before I let you go,
worst for last.
A guy who is going to be a team captain at the University of Utah this coming year, Keanu Tanuvasa, has transferred out, and he's transferred to BYU. And look, I have been kind of like in the middle, like, hey, the transfer portal giveth and taketh away. You can't cry about it. when you lose things because you get just as much as you give. This one, he's a fan favorite in the fan base. He's a great player. He was a leader on this team. And that's typically not the guy you lose. So is it a sign of bigger problems that you lose him, or is it just like he's the one guy who decided that he's got to go even given those circumstances?
How long has he been in the program for?
This would have been his 4th year in the program.
Okay, so I don't, guys are going to come and go. I don't really have a problem. My only problem per se, and this is take it with a grain of salt because I'm really irrelevant, but for me, my issue was with his reasoning. Like, you could be yourself, you can laugh, you can smile, you can make jokes. Like, that came off as like very unauthentic. Like, so what? The last 3 years, you couldn't be yourself in our program? Like, I think I don't agree with that. I think it's fake, and I don't like. Just tell the real reason. Is it money? Is it you want to be with Coach Pua again? Like, don't say like don't badmouth our program. Like, you can't be yourself. Like, that's a bunch of hogwash if you're asking me. And I wish them all the best, but don't. Like, just have some respect for your old program and just be real. Like, I'm tired of guys saying, oh, I sat down with my family and prayer and this and that. It's like, no, you went where you wanted to get the most money. Like, I would respect you more and this and that. So, I don't know. Like, it's pretty lame if you're asking me.
Well, I did ask you, so I appreciate you giving me your honest answer. It's
I don't know. Like, I love the kid, and I think he's a baller, and I don't know how this even gets to a point where we're losing guys like this, but that's the way the game is. But the explanation is really what got me. Like, you're on this, TV, and they ask you that, and that's the reason? Like, you were that unhappy that you never could be yourself? Like, come on.
And again, I'm all for people making their decisions, and you live with your own consequences. That's part of being in college, especially. Do your thing, make the money you can make, whatever. There's a lot of reasons.
Sure.
There's a lot of reasons to go play for BYU right now. I'm not going to sit here and pretend there are not.
Doubt. And we know all those. Like, I'm close with those coaches down there. Shoot, my son might play for them one day. So it's not like, I'm not up here trying to badmouth them. I just don't think the explanation was real and valid to leave. No, you could say what you want, but that's just my opinion.
Especially 2 weeks after you were making fun of other guys for jumping into the transfer portal. It's wild.
Yeah, like, it doesn't I just wish guys would be honest and just say the real reason. Like, hey, they offered me way more money and that's why I'm going. Hey, good for you. Like, who's going to tell you or be mad at you for trying to maximize the amount of money that you can get right now? Like, that's okay. Now, would I advise my son maybe differently? Yeah, but that's my son, and he's going to do his own thing if he's fortunate enough to get in that position. But the reason, I don't know, I'm not buying the reason. I'm just not buying it, but I wish him the best and good luck.
It's always great talking to you, my friend. Happy New Year. Hopefully I see you soon. You
as well, buddy.
Eric Weddle, Utah football legend, NFL legend. James, go back and strike that one sentence from the record. I want you to delete that. I want you to delete that from the podcast form of the show.
Did he just break some news?
No, he didn't break any news. He's just covered all of his bases there. Don't read into that, please.
No, wait, is he talking about it? He's got two sons, right?
He's got one son.
Just the one. Okay, never mind. I thought
one
maybe
son.
He had one other son.
One son,
is he
3
talking about a
daughters.
younger son?
No. 1 son, 3 daughters.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, that didn't happen. Everyone, stop freaking out. That didn't actually happen.
That's funny. All right. I asked Weddle about it. I want to get your thoughts on it as well. I'm going to tell you why targeting was better officiated in the Peach Bowl than it was in any other game of the college football season. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Zachariah Hour coming in about 5 minutes. But before we get there, I just want to tell all of you, the Peach Bowl was the first time this season that targeting was officiated correctly in any football game that I have watched. Now, I didn't watch every football game in the country. I didn't watch every NFL game. But the reason targeting was brought into football as a penalty, as a personal foul, as a big-time costly penalty, was to make it safer and to eliminate concussive hits, if at all possible. And in the Peach Bowl, you heard us reference both of these plays, Arizona State, Texas. The interception for Arizona State, where the off-ball defender hits, and he launched. He was like, the receiver was defenseless, certainly, looking back for the ball that was never going to get to his hands because of a beautiful play by the Arizona State safety. He's defenseless, and a shoulder hits him mostly in the chest, but there was that clacking of the helmets. Helmet to helmet did happen. He falls down, and we have seen so many games where that's a targeting penalty. That negates an interception, that extends a drive for Texas, that turns this game into less of a game. That was a massive play for Arizona State.
They were down a touchdown, 24-16 at that point, I believe.
That's
so.
right. It was a one-score game. And
was that the drive that they tied the game on? I think it might have been.
It was. That got them possession of the football back, and it very easily could have been negated. Now, that one was – there was more room for interpretation, but if they wanted to give that back to Texas, very few people would have been able to say, no, that's not targeting, but most of the bulk of the contact happened kind of chest to chest, all right? So that was officiated correctly. The spirit of the law, the letter of the law is basically any time a receiver is defenseless, don't touch him. Don't touch anywhere near his head.
And whether you hit him with your helmet or your shoulder,
or
if
your
it hits him in the head, then that's targeting.
Hey, we're talking about this on the Dan Patrick Show this morning, and it's absolutely true. We have lost the plot when it comes to the reason these rules were put in place with roughing the passer in the NFL, with targeting everywhere. Like, if you touch somebody,
hate the way they officiate roughing the passer.
If you get a finger on somebody's helmet, or if you get like a little nudge on Patrick Mahomes after the ball's already gone, then the flag comes out. And it's just silliness. And then obviously the face-to-face, and that was an All-American safety. That was Michael Taffa. That's like, he's one of the best defensive players on that Texas team. And he goes face mask to face mask on a defenseless receiver. That one was obviously visually fast motion, slow motion, whatever angle you're looking at. That one looked more like targeting. But again, what you were trying to eliminate by putting targeting into a game was guys launching their shoulders, their forearms, and especially the crowns of their helmet into other people's heads, and that's not what that play was. You just heard Weddle saying that's teach tape tackling. That's your body's in the right position, your head is up, you're maybe a little bit too high, but they're both adjusting to where the ball is at, and their face masks smashed together.
And under control, too. Like, you talk about no launching. He almost did the I come from the basketball world, right? He almost did the stutter step basketball closeout that they teach you on the way to the tackle, like that.
He came to balance. Yeah. He gathered his feet. He was clearly ready to react to a football move. The ball was right there. His opponent was right there, and he made the tackle. And look, you could have said, "Oh, that's targeting. Keep it going." Arizona State wins that game, and it's still a great game. I'm not ready to say that the referee got an edict, a mandate from on high.
I wasn't with Weddle on that one either, but
because if that were the case, then you probably would have given the interception back to Texas as well. That would have been a more obvious place to do it potentially. But targeting and roughing the passer have become such a hot-button thing where you hate every targeting penalty that gets called on your team, and you love every targeting penalty that gets called on another. And you know why you hate it when it happens to you and you love it when it happens to someone else? Is because you recognize that it is most of the time an unjust penalty. It is an ill-officiated situation that is so often dedicated to the strict letter of the law and not what the game is supposed to actually be like, the change that was actually supposed to happen in the game with that new rule.
When it comes to targeting, the guy gets ejected. Like, it is
Exactly.
so harsh.
It's so crazy harsh.
Yeah.
So it was the right move. Even though I wanted Arizona State to win, I wanted them to be rewarded. That was not a malicious, dirty football play. That's what targeting is supposed to be. And that's why I'm glad the flag wasn't thrown, and it wasn't thrown earlier in the game. This was the first game that it was officiated in a way that I'm like, you know what? Looks more like football than anything.
Going back to the interception real quick, the one that they reviewed and decided, and they also decided on that one it's not targeting. I was really hoping, even though in live action I thought, okay, that's going to be targeting. I wouldn't have totally disagreed with it if they had confirmed that. I was hoping that it turned out the way it did, because it felt ridiculous in that situation when the interception had nothing to do with the call, that Texas would have kept the ball if targeting was confirmed. So that, to me, feels like there's an adjustment in the rule that might need to be made. That's like, it can be a 15-yard penalty, but it shouldn't negate a change of possession if it had nothing to do with the change of possession. But I don't know. Maybe that's just too impossible to do, but that's what it felt like in that situation. I'm like, oh man, that should be ASU's ball, even if it is supposed to be targeting. And anyway, glad that it wasn't that way, because it would have felt like an even more injustice that Texas would have kept the ball in that situation.
Last thing before we take a break to start hour number 3, 6055 says, in regards to that call being targeting, there was not an indicator like a launch or a crouch. A crouch of the head that would put targeting on it. I'm a full-time replay official in college.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for listening, first of all. Second of all, I guess you're saying that wasn't targeting? Awesome. This is how
let's save that phone number when we have controversial calls.
Yes,
we get our own rules analyst.
We're going to get our own rule. You're our own Gene Steratore. 6055. Thanks for listening. All right. Quick break. Zachariah Hour next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
More in motion. Abney trailing him. Play clock down to 8. Down to 7. Sun Devils load up the box. They bring the blitz. Texas holds the pocket. Throw downfield. Golden open. Touchdown, Texas. And the Longhorns a point away from tying the game.
Peach Bowl touchdown for Texas. 4th and 13 in overtime. They ended up winning that game over Arizona State in an instant classic. The best game of the college football playoff so far. Unfortunately, the college football playoff, that was courtesy of ESPN Radio. So far, the college football playoff, the expanded field, has been awesome because it keeps everybody involved, but we haven't had a ton of really incredible games. That one makes up for a lot. In 50 minutes, Notre Dame, Georgia will kick off in the delayed Sugar Bowl at the Superdome in New Orleans. Already on the field warming up as we get ready with the Zachariah Hour. And his policy, James, he said he was going to start just adding up all the delays that we have, and then eventually he's just going to not show up for the hour. We're approaching that rapidly. Not for 2025. So, Zachariah, can I get a reset button? Can we start that now for 2025 and just forgive all the 2024 sins?
No. Oh, yeah. It starts in 2025. So right now you're at negative 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes logged. Once we hit 60, you just won't see me for the Zachariah.
Okay. All right.
So you're a sixth of the way there, bud.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it a New Year's resolution to not abuse the clock so aggressively when we're anticipating a Zachariah Hour.
I mean, I can't even really be mad because you usually have Eric Weddle as the appetizer before I come on as the entree, and I can't be mad when you take Eric Weddle. By the way, I was listening to the whole thing, but somehow I missed the only thing where you said strike that from the podcast. What did he say on the airwaves that I missed?
I'm not going to repeat it.
Okay, well then you have to text it to me.
I'll text it to you.
The one thing I missed.
It's just it would cause a widespread panic among Utah fans. All right, so I'm just gonna.
Zachariah, you remember we were trying to say Ute-mageddon? It would be a Ute-mageddon type thing.
Okay. I think I can get it now because I heard you say something about his son, but
we're trying to prevent a huge disaster. There's huge hysteria and panic here. Okay.
Got it. Because our guy Mufasa, he transferred. Get it? Mufasa.
Tony Mufasa. I love it.
Instead, he's Scar. He's Scar. OC.
I like this. I like that you're going with a Lion King analogy. Yeah. Okay, we can start there. It is a symptom of the transfer portal. This actually happened even before the transfer portal existed. Guys would move back and forth from one school to another. We haven't seen – I can't recall a time where an individual moved from Utah to BYU in a transfer situation who was so highly thought of, was so important to the team, was a guy that was probably going to be a team captain. And that's exactly what Keanu Tanuvasa is and was at Utah. And now he's headed to BYU, and he gave he explained some of his reasoning for entering the transfer portal in a tweet, and took a really heavy spiritual slant on that one. And then in an interview, he talked about feeling more freedom and flexibility to be himself, whatever the bleep that means. So your thoughts on what this means for Utah, but also what it means just in college sports in general, that you can have rivals transferring to the rival school.
Yeah, this one hurts. I mean, this is like Stanford, Cal. This is UCLA, USC, or I don't know. Does USC consider Notre Dame their rival? I don't know. Whatever. This one hurts. Miami, Florida State, I guess, or like Michigan, Ohio State. This one definitely stung. And the reasons now, I don't know exactly what it was. Weddle seemed to think like it was all money related. I don't know if it was that, but it was certainly not the reasons that he listed. So while I might not be with Weddle on why he did it, I'm certainly with Weddle in terms of just say why you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, there is nothing that I would do to, like, even if it wasn't something, OC, that would offend you, even if it was just something that I was doing, I would have an explanation to it because you're my friend, you're my guy, I love you. You know what I mean? Like, and even people that I don't love, most of the time time there's very few times where I'm not going to give you the actual ideology and thinking behind my action. And to me, everything that he said, it can't be that. So just say what it was. Do you think that BYU puts you in a better chance to get drafted or to have more success in your college career moving forward? Is it that you got more money? It could be that. Is it because your friends and family lean wide? Who knows what it is? But it was not that you couldn't express yourself. You certainly couldn't say that about Utah. Oh, see, now I'm not the expert and haven't lived there my whole life like you, but I certainly know that Utah would be the last place in the state of Utah that you would say you wouldn't be able to express yourself.
Well, here's the thing. There is still a level of discomfort for people in being directly honest. You and I have talked about this many, many times because you and I, we probably both in our personal lives and maybe even professionally, we err on the side of saying too much, of being too blunt, too brash, too whatever, right? Yep. So I've made plenty of mistakes on that front. I know you have as well. There are people out there, and I didn't think Keanu Tanuvasa has never struck me as a guy. He's been very communicative. He's been a guy that's easy to talk to, willing with interviews, that kind of thing. He has never been someone that I've considered to be guarded with their communication, right? Like someone who can't say what they want to say. Now, if that's his reasoning, if that's the story he wants to go with, fine. But I think it's important for him and for everyone else in college sports to understand right now that because it is a business environment, because it is the transfer portal is just like about your bottom line and about what can you do for me. Nobody begrudges a player if they say, I'm transferring to wherever, even if it's your school's rival, because I'm getting paid more. No one is going to say, oh, well, you shouldn't go. They'll just say, oh, all right, well, I would take a job that paid me more, so that makes sense. No one would even begrudge you if you said, hey, they had 11 wins, and the future looks very bright. I don't know what it's going to be like at Utah. This was the worst season that I've been a part of, and this has been the worst season in the last decade plus for Utah. So I'm getting out of here while I can to go to a team that won 11 games. If you tell people I'm either making more money or I think I could be more successful, they might argue against the reasoning behind that, but they're not going to criticize you. They're not going to get mad at you for making a decision based on those things. So I just think that every athlete and every coach, by the way, needs to be aware of coaches are already aware. When a coach goes and says, hey, I'm leaving this North Texas job to take the actual Texas job, nobody's like, what are you doing? Where's your loyalty? They're just like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But doesn't everything that you just said, doesn't that make it all the more odd of why he didn't just come out with the real reasoning?
Absolutely,
to me, turning to the spiritual part and saying that I couldn't express myself, that to me just it's proof. It's not proof because we don't know for certain. But to me, that's like kind of really showing that it's covering up for something else. And as you just said, all the other reasons that it could be are less worse than saying those ones that are clearly not the case. That's what makes it so perplexing for me. It's just like, just say it. Just be like, look, they were the better team. I feel more comfortable over there. I feel like I'll be drafted higher if I go there or whatever it is. Just say it. Like to me, it's almost like a girl breaking up with you. Like, tell me it's for the actual reasons. Don't give me some BS about it's not you, it's me or whatever. Tell me what it is about me. I'd rather hear the truth than hear some stuff that it like clearly does not seem like it's the actual reason.
All right, so Utah's got to figure out how to keep the rest of the big-time talents in the program. I hope that's not a sign of more things to come. The transfer portal for now is closed, and you turn the page, you move on, spring ball, all that stuff. There will be another transfer portal window that will open there, and because of what happened this season with BYU and because of what happened with Arizona State, I'm ready to take the wait-and-see approach more than I've ever been ready to take that approach. In this job, we try to prognosticate, we try to predict, we try to have the insight and guess what's going to happen, partly because it's the job, partly because we want to sound smart. For me, it's mostly because I want to sound smart. And and look, we're wrong sometimes. This year in the Big 12 especially, we were so devastatingly wrong about how it was going to play out in the Big 12. And I'm letting that inform my expectations for Utah's offseason and for Utah's coming season, because we were wrong this year. We could be wrong again next year. And if Utah is going to be picked probably to finish because they still have a lot of respect, I think that they'll be picked to finish in the upper half, but certainly they're not going to be picked to finish first in the conference. I'm just going to wait and see, Zachariah, because this year taught me that that's the only way to approach a strange conference like the Big 12.
Oh, well, look, when you got the job back there at ESPN 700 and you gave me the honor of being a part of doing the show with you, obviously I dove into it. And, yes, the standings were quite literally flipped upside down from what people projected. So, we were talking about Oklahoma State. Did they even win a Big 12 game? I don't even know if they did.
They did not. Oklahoma State did not win a Big 12 conference game this year.
There you go. And they were supposed to be the number one team that was going to rival Utah, and both teams were at the bottom. So, yeah, I mean, what you've learned is to expect the unexpected, certainly. But I swear to God, OC, you know me well enough. I think I'm a positive person in general, but I'm certainly not one of those rose-colored glasses. And for whatever reason, anytime I'm trying to do my analysis or looking into I always have some sort of positive spin. Even when it looked like the season was off the rails, I was always the positive guy, and I'm remaining that. You would think that I would have been jaded by this horrible year. I'm not. I am all in on the fact that Coach Witt said, hey, this defense has been the staple of our program for a long time. Yes, when we had Cam, our offense was a complement to our defense, and we had great success. But in general, our offense has been the only reason why we have not been winning. It has not been special teams, and it has not been the defense. And he basically said, clean house. Now, I don't know what happened. Now, you say that it was his interview with me that pushed Coach Flood out. I don't like to think that way. I like to think that he said, look, I've got to adapt. And rather than retiring, which he could have done, and he still would have been celebrated as the greatest Utah coach ever, he said, no, I ain't going out like that. I know what I can do well on the defensive side and what I can do as the head coach, but I need to completely revamp the offense. And I think bringing in Dampier and Beck, I think it's going to completely change. So I'm right now back on my Utah swag, OC.
I like that. I think that's the right way to be. And especially watching how quarterback play has affected these college football playoffs, it really does come down to your QB, and I'm high on Devin Dampier. Let's focus in on the games that actually happened and are happening.
Oh man, where are you going to start here, bud?
Well, I want to start with Arizona State and what they were able to accomplish this year, but also the game yesterday. For players, the players all kind of came through, and I feel devastated for Leavitt throwing that game-deciding interception in overtime. He's going to have a hard time getting over that. Cam Scatteraboo had an unbelievable game after a bit of a slow start. The thing for me is Arizona State and that coaching staff have to be going back and looking at the missed opportunities on 3 scoreless drives inside the red zone in the first half. This game could have turned out so very differently with a different play call here or there, with, I guess, slightly better execution here or there, but especially the play calling was bananas in that first quarter and early part of the second quarter for Arizona State. And just against a team like Texas, you have to take advantage of your opportunities. You cannot miss the big-time opportunities, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, yeah, look, Arizona State was stifled in the red zone multiple times and just really couldn't finish drives early in the game. And it looked like for a long part of the game that those empty trips were going to haunt them, and they were able to get back in. I mean, but let's talk about the luckiest person on the planet right now, and his name is Bert Auburn. And I don't know what Auburn association is with Texas. Is it like Auburn Orange? Is that why I'm associating Auburn with Texas?
Well, Auburn is like Auburn. The color is like red hair. Like that's Auburn.
Okay, but do they call the Texas orange like Auburn orange?
No, they call it burnt orange.
Okay, is there a city in Texas called Auburn? Why am I associating Auburn with Texas other than the kicker?
Well, they both play in the SEC now, Auburn and Texas.
No, not the school. I'm talking about his last name. That kicker is Brett Auburn, whatever. That is the luckiest guy on the planet. He missed 2 very makeable field goals, including one that could have ended the game in regulation. So he's he is the guy that got away, the easiest. But, yeah, I mean, Arizona State, first of all, Scatterbo, I know you asked Weddle, is he a guy that plays on Sundays? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. If he played on a Belichick Patriots team, he would be like the Super Bowl MVP. He's like Wes Welker and Edelman and whoever that other white fullback running back guy that they had, all molded into one. He threw, he caught, he ran. He was incredible. So, I mean, yeah, the takeaways from the game is honestly it looked like they had all the opportunities to win that game, and I'm sure the targeting thing, I know you talked about that with Weddle as well.
Where do you stand on that targeting thing?
Sort of. Man, I am okay. The segment after you did with Weddle, you talked about how the rule was put in play for the most egregious versions of the penalty, right? And I'm with you on that. I would only call it when it's egregious, but it was textbook, right by the book. If you write the letters out and read the English language, it was targeting. But I would also be – now, I was rooting for Arizona State like you were, so I would have been fine with it being called, but I was fine with it. Now, ultimately, I would like it – I would much rather it be read like that, where even though it is by the letter of the law targeting, it's not one of those blatant launching your head and trying to injure the player type of deals that we used to see back when the NFL used to celebrate big hits, by the way, and had a segment called you got not knocked up.
Jacked
up, yeah. They used to have that on Monday Night Football. They quickly took that out when concussions came to the forefront. But ultimately, you asked me, like, what my take is on it. I think that it was, and I think it would have been totally justified if it was called. But I was, as a fan of the sport and not a fan of what I was rooting for, I would have rather it been called the way that it was.
It gave us, well, it's part of what gave us an all-time classic game. And, yes, if I was an Arizona State alum, I'd probably be up in arms and we'd be having a slightly different conversation today. But as a fan of college football, a fan of football in general, the spirit of the law is often disregarded when it comes down to anything related to player safety. And, like you can legitimately, you could be pass rushing and reach for a quarterback right now and just like slap the side of his helmet, don't even grab anything, and just open-handed slap the side of his helmet and get a roughing the passer penalty because it's crazy.
No. And look, I know you got a break, so I want you to answer one thing, but I will say the thing that I appreciated about what you said in the segment after Weddle is that ultimately you put that rule in for the egregious, in the words of Dave Chappelle and Charlie Murphy, habitual line steppers. So, like, when Vaz Burfict is, like, knocking Antonio Brown into the crazy state that he's in now over the middle, launching with his helmet and, like, leaping from his feet, that's when you throw the flag. When it's a bang-bang thing like that and it was clearly not intentional and it was just part of the play, that's when I would not call it. So I was okay with that not being called. I do want to ask you this before you go to break. Did the Arizona State coach, because I know, believe me, he was all sorts of fiery when they beat Utah, and he was running on the field, and he was talking about, I was one of those guys in those stands running out, blah, 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 blah. Did he say anything about that non-call? Because I didn't see the post game.
What I heard from Kenny Dillingham is that he did not say anything about the non-call. He did not say anything other than focusing on what his team should have done differently and missed opportunities,
so
and
he took the high road,
doing the coach speak thing. But you know what?
Yeah,
he did say, I don't know what targeting is, and that's an accurate, like.
Isn't that pretty much where we're all at?
When you look at that not being called versus some of the things that have been called, then yes, none of us know what targeting is.
Yeah.
How far down the rabbit hole do you go? Weddle thinks that referee went and put a headset on, and they said that's not targeting. Go back and keep calling the game. Like the conspiracy theory stance, which I love so much from a guy who's been at the highest level of the sport, a literal Super Bowl champion. I love hearing that from him. How far down that rabbit hole are you willing to go?
I heard that, and I am quite frequently I have a strong opinion one way or the other. I am really torn on that because half of me says, come on, conspiracy theorist, crazy weirdo, no, there's no way that people are actually fixing stuff or whatever. And then I actually think about the bottom line, and I'll never forget my father, God rest his soul, always told me, son, if you ever want the answer to any issue, ever, any issue at all, follow the money. And so part of me does go, maybe there is somebody going, like a mafia guy in like a tie with a tie clip and a cigar and like some whiskey, and he's sitting there, he's going, we need the ticks.
Can you imagine being, it was a Big Ten officiating crew. Can you imagine being the Big Ten referee, right? You run over there, you put the headset on, and you're seeing it, you're watching this thing, and you're just like, oh, geez, that's pretty clearly, by the letter of the law, that's pretty clearly targeting. And then some Darth Vader voice. So, like, the normal person that you hear, the replay official, the normal voice is just gone.
Scott,
and you just hear this.
Scott is gone.
It's just like, that is not targeting. Get back to the game and shut your mouth. Like,
I have him as an Italian mob boss, but yeah, Darth Vader works too.
just some guy.
That is not targeting, OC.
Hey. It's not targeting. Don't even worry about it. Go back, call the rest. You're just like, sir, is that you? Is that who am I speaking to?
Scott's not here. Scott's not here. Tell you what that's not. If you like your knees, that's not targeting. Now you go down midfield, you tell the people, that's not targeting. That's what I have. I have a guy with a cigar and a cup of scotch, just telling the guy in a thick Italian accent, if you want your kids and your wife to live a normal life, you're going to go on that field, even though you think it's blatantly targeting, and you're going to say no target.
You just got wearing a pinky ring and just telling everyone what's 100%. Supposed to be happening. All right. Okay. I'll go with that. That's actually a lot more fun than they just got it wrong. Although I do find it hilarious. If you notice this, every single time there is a replay official, where they bring in like the Gene Sterators, they bring in the Terry McCaulleys, they bring in Dean Blandino. Every single time they bring in an officiating expert to evaluate a call being made on the field, those guys are like really careful about criticizing or telling you that the referees are wrong. Every single time. Every NFL game, every college football game, they're just like, well, I could see the interpretation or whatever. Even if they disagree, they dance around it so delicately because they don't want to put the officials on the field in a bad position. And they don't want to put those throw those guys under the bus.
They appreciate the health of their knees, and they've been told that their knees are in danger.
But after this game, it's been so funny how every single rules official has just come out and been like, clearly targeting, should have been a flag. Nobody's dancing around it. They're just like,
the call's already been made.
They got that one wrong. I know, but even the call is always made already when you're watching a broadcast. And then they bring in Dean Blandino, and they're just like, Dean, what'd you think of that call? He'll just be like, even when you can tell, you can see his face. He's just like, wow, that was a terrible call. He'll just be like, well, the letter of the law, the language of the rules says, and they're really careful. This time, everyone's just like, no, he sucks. This guy's terrible. Clearly wrong.
I don't know what to tell you, man. All I can say is that just like looking at it from the macro perspective, as a fan of the sport, I appreciated that it wasn't called, but it totally should have been called. And that's the only really way to like analyze it. You can break it down however you want, but like you're either on the side of you don't want it called like that and you thought it should be called, or you're on the side of that you don't want it called like that, but you still think it should be called. Either way, both sides think that it should be called. And I'm with Weddle a little bit that it's not a coincidence that it went against Arizona State and not Texas. That's all.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back and discuss more sports conspiracy theories. Sean O'Connell Show, Zachariah sitting in for the hour. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. If you are looking for the most stylish, the highest quality, the best hats in the game, look no further than Wood & Grail, local company. That's Wood, the letter N, Grail.com. They've got gift cards available. They've got a full selection of incredible Ute hats, BYU hats, even Aggie hats, and they continue to add more and more schools all the time. Now is the perfect time to go to woodandgrail.com, sign up for the newsletter, get the news on all of the drops because they do very limited runs on some of the best hats. So for the person in your life who is looking for the ball cap that separates them in the fashion world, Wood & Grail and woodandgrail.com. All right, Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. The Zachariah Hour. Do you have any more thoughts on college football? Because I want to ask you some NFL stuff to see your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, quickly, just to get off my chest, I'm really, what's the word? I'm not saddened because I'm not an Oregon fan. I mean, I do love Nike and Jordan and all that stuff, but I mean, I guess maybe it's because I got like some Pac-12 pride or whatever. I don't know if disgusted is the word. I knew Ohio State was not properly ranked within the 12 teams, and I was not shocked when they did what they did in the first and second round. I guess I'm just disappointed, not disgusted. I mean, it's not their fault. Those kids tried their best, but man, that was a whooping. And I loved the whole narrative that Ohio State and Coach Day, his job was on the line after having such a successful season, but the fact that he's lost to Michigan 4 out of 5 years or whatever it is, I was really disappointed in Oregon. I guess that's it. That game was kind of a laugher from the jump street, and that's pretty much. I mean, the rest of the stuff has kind of been chalk.
It was terrible.
I totally saw it coming, guys. I wasn't nervous at all.
That was a huge bummer for Oregon.
Okay. Is he being sarcastic?
I am.
Yes. He's wearing his Ohio State hat, and he's just like.
No, I know he's a Buckeye fan. I just couldn't tell if he actually didn't take Oregon seriously.
No, I did. I actually. So after they lost in Eugene, in the immediate aftermath, I'm like, okay, they'll play him again in the Big Ten championship game. They're probably going to beat Oregon. Then with how things turned out, a subpar playover win in Nebraska in particular made me feel not very good, and then obviously the loss in the rivalry game against Michigan made me go, I don't know if they're beating Oregon again. So I was actually legitimately nervous going into that game and shocked that it was that lopsided for sure.
What? They are that much more talented than the majority of the teams. It's kind of the way that I feel about Georgia. I've been saying that about Georgia too for a long time, and so whatever. We'll see how the game plays out. But yeah, I mean, I was just disappointed that I didn't expect it to be the thriller that it was in Eugene earlier in the year, but I certainly did not expect it to be lopsided, even though I do know that Ohio State on paper has a ridiculous amount of talent.
Well, so does Oregon, which is why that one was like such a bum deal because look, they continue to recruit at an incredibly high level. They're going to stay kind of at the top of the Big Ten alongside Ohio State and probably Penn State if they can finish out this year they're already having an unbelievable season, but it was a bummer to watch an undefeated year come down to that. And that brings, I put the poll question out there today, which comes down to, rust versus rest. All of these first round teams that had the bye have lost so far. Now we'll figure out what happens with Notre Dame and Georgia coming up in 18 minutes. They're supposed to kick off, but it was supposed to be a huge reward, and I thought for sure it would be. In this year, it hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give credit to Chip at this point, right? I mean, look, we've seen different variations of Chip, both at Oregon, his terrible stint with the Niners, UCLA, but like he's been granted, he has the chess pieces to be able to look the way that he does, but that's been my biggest takeaway is more of a tip cap to Chip than it is to Coach Day, the head coach.
All right. Want to get to some NFL stuff. I'll take a break here so that we're not just demolishing the clock again. We'll take a break here. Okay. Saquon Barkley is shutting it down with a record 100 yards away, shutting it down as the team heads into the final week of regular season play. Eric Weddle didn't love that. He doesn't think the offensive line is going to love it. We'll talk about it next on the Sean O'Connell Show with Zachariah sitting in for the hour on ESPN 700. Should Saquon Barkley play in pursuit of a single-season rushing record in the NFL? He's 100 yards away from Eric Dickerson's single-season record. Now, he is getting an extra game to do it, which is a cheat code. But in our conversation with Eric Weddle earlier in the day, he said, yeah, but no one looks back at that. You kind of do. But only people on Sports Talk Radio do that. The average fan is going to say, who's the single-season record holder? Well, that's Eric Dickerson. Well, that's Saquon Barkley. Zachariah, what do you think? Should he go for it? Should his offensive line insist that they be given a chance to set this record?
If I was a part of the squad, 100%. Look, I've told you actually, you know what? This will be a testimony of our friendship. Do you know what my number one when talking about sports is?
When you talk with people who know more about sports than you?
I haven't met anybody yet. No, it's injuries. So I have spent way too much of my life thinking about injuries, rust, right? Do you sit a guy? Do you play a guy? Whatever. I have now come to a conclusive decision on how I feel about all of that. And the bottom line is, OC, as you and I, well, you're like 46, right? I'm 41, something like that.
We're literally the same age. We are exactly the same
You're
age.
older by like 3 or 4 months. Anyways, you can get hurt doing the laundry. You can get hurt taking your dog out for a walk. So I am, put it like this. If I'm Barkley, which, by the way, as being a Suns Dolphins fan, how great would it have been if the Dolphins drafted Barkley and I could wear a Barkley Dolphins jersey? That's neither here nor there. My point is, I am all in on going for it because you can get hurt doing no matter what, or you can make the argument that Russ, like you talked about the teams that had buys coming out flat, you can make the argument that it's better for them to just continue to play through it. So, and on the terms of whether or not, like how many games are played, OC, you're right. We know 16 versus 17, but do we know when it was 8 versus 10 or 10 versus 13 or 13 versus 14 or all those different iterations? No. So as time goes on, you're never going to know how many games were played. I would just do the average thing. I would take the total amount of minimum games played from one season. So let's say the maximum was 10 back in like 1940, and I would just do the average per game because to me that tells you what they actually did.
Oh well, then O.J. Simpson
is Barkley or the offensive lineman. I want to go for the record.
Then O.J. Simpson is still the record holder because he had fewer games. That Eric Dickerson barely broke his record, and O.J. Simpson had like 12 games.
I'm fine with that. If you hit the bare minimum that the maximum did, and your average is better, I would take that over whatever because you're right. If you play 17 games, then you're going to have more yards than a guy that played 12 games.
Here, I'll tell you this: if they were, I don't think that's what's changing the decision here. If this were a quarterback record, like we saw Cam Ward at Miami chasing a record and sitting the second half,
made me sick, by the way. I texted the thread with you and Alonzo on it, but yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
So. The difference here is that you're trying to prepare for a Super Bowl run. The Eagles have, I think, the highest odds right now in the NFC to win a Super Bowl. And maybe it's still Detroit. But in any case, they feel like they're one of probably 2 or 3 teams in the NFC that's got a shot. And so they're sacrificing the individual record for a team goal, and Saquon Barkley has to be okay with that. If it were a quarterback, the quarterback could go to his coach and be like, hey, man, I want to play. I want to throw one more touchdown pass to get this record. And the coach would have to be like, all right, fine. But with Saquon, if you want the record, you got to risk 6 guys. You got to risk your starting offensive line and your running back.
Center, guard, tackle,
So those guys being healthy and ready and rested is, I think, the reason that this is happening. And it's the right decision, even though it's got to be aggravating. Jeff Schwartz.
You're pro-sitting?
It's the right decision. Yeah, sit.
Okay.
Pursue the team goal instead of the individual goal. If it were, if this were week, if this were week 15, if it were 15 and he had a chance to set the record in 16 games, and he wanted to sit out for the 16th game, then I might take exception to it. But the way I see it, it's the extra game.
About the number of games. You're not even about the rest. You're about the number of games.
Well, they're not existing in a vacuum here. Both of these things.
OC. When you go back and look in history, well before we were born, do we have any idea how many games those guys were playing? No. So, nobody in your kids, your daughters, if you hopefully get them into sports, like I know you're trying to brainwash them, and I do the same thing. They're gonna go, oh, well, that was back when they were playing 17.
You know what? They could make a different judgment on it. For me, having watched at least some of Dickerson's highlights and knowing what it took for him to set that record, and now knowing how many guys came close, Adrian Peterson came close, and Emmitt Smith came close, and Chris Johnson came close, knowing how many great players we saw miss it and not get there, and then a guy gets there because he has an extra game, I take umbrage.
Okay, fair enough. You can take all the umbrage you want. All I'm telling you is that, first of all,
I could beat you in a basketball points contest if you got to play 10 games and I got to play 200. Then I get the record.
Look, I agree with the premise, OC. I'm saying even within our small spectrum of doing sports broadcasting, you might be in the majority, but it would be barely. You spread that out to the wide population, you're getting like less than 10% of the people that are going to give two bleeps about how many games were played. Because, again, as much as I consider myself to be a sports historian, I have no idea how many games OJ and Jim Brown and Eric Dickerson played. I don't know if it was 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, now 17.
Well, it was 12, and then it was 16. So there, now you have your answer.
Factor that in, OC.
And the same thing, by the way, for Barry Sanders' record. Barry Sanders' record is untouchable. We talked about this earlier. The guy had over 2,800 yards in 12 games. He had 11 games, and that was 2682 or whatever. And then he rushed for 222 yards in a bowl game, and the NCAA back then was like, nope, that doesn't count for your record. So it doesn't even – anyway.
Okay, so do the average. I say bare minimum of games, so you have to have a minimum of games, and then do the average of what that is. I'm okay with that.
All right. That's how the Zachariah records will be kept.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get the final word here from the actual expert, the actual voice of reason. Spence Checketts hosting the drive.
I just want to give a shout out to the Juice. I just want to give a shout out to OJ. I didn't know we were gonna rolling in to do a little crosstalk, and whatever happened to that guy? How's he holding up?
I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, okay. All right. Fascinating conversation. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Sorry, OJ was 14 games, by the way. I think I said 12. It was 14.
Shout out to that dude. Hang in there, Juice. I'm assuming we're talking.
Don't say hang in there, Juice. Why did you say that?
He's
gone.
Juice is gone.
He's gone.
It was the first thing I heard when I put the headset on. We're talking a little OJ to get the New Year started out the right. I'm assuming you're talking about Saquon sitting when he could break the record.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
I would play personally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to get the record.
Then you have to ask your 5 bodyguards to play too.
It's a good point. It's a fair point. And I think to your point, I mean, Detroit, I think, is still the betting favorite.
Okay.
But they can't stop anybody. You can't outscore teams 41-40 all year long in the playoffs. So I actually think Philly has a legitimate chance, and you'd rather win a Super Bowl than hold a record for sure.
You know what else I love about this is every time Eric Dickerson is asked about, hey, what do you want to? Do you want to see? Do you want to see Saquon break your record? He's like, no.
Yeah. Very honest.
I don't.
Very honest.
Yeah.
I'd feel the same way.
Of course.
Especially as you get older. You know the deal.
People forget
like
you after 5
too.
minutes.
Also,
that's true.
Well, it's like Mercury Morris, too, right, with the Dolphins. He didn't want anybody to see an undefeated team. He's gone now, unfortunately. He was like the spokesman of the undefeated Dolphins. But he never wanted – like, he was rooting against the Patriots. He rooted against everybody that came close to that record. And God bless. Again, I will tell the story for the 1,000th time on these airwaves. My dad never let me beat him in basketball until I was physically able to beat him in basketball. That's how it goes.
You know what,
so
Scott
if you're
Mitchell.
and you're the lineman, you want that record.
Scott Mitchell came on these airwaves because Cam Rising, if he had played this year, he would have broken all the quarterbacking records.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott was like, I don't want him to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to keep these records. I want to be at the top of there. And that's a guy who has to talk to Cam all the time. And he's just actively honest about it and be like, no, I want him to not break my records. And
good for him.
For unfortunate reasons, Cam was not able to break those records. But, yeah, I appreciated Scott's honesty there, too.
I think, doesn't it just come down to if you have a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl, is that where you should put your attention?
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
It's the right decision.
Yeah.
If this were a team that, didn't really have Super Bowl aspirations or was going to be like a wild card team.
Or even a chance, yeah.
You'd be like, you know what, go chase immortality. But the way that this team for 53 guys could achieve immortality is more important than Saquon potentially getting an extra 100 yards.
Well, and remember how far away.
My counter to that is that you can get hurt picking up the newspaper, or people don't do that anymore.
The percentages are quite different.
Yeah, play the odds.
Yeah.
If you're a professional athlete, like it's not like Carlos Boozer punching the wall at Prince's house. But remember,
Barat hitting his head on the stand.
Remember how far away Saquon has been in his career from even competitiveness. This is the first good team he's played on, right? And so
he was injury prone.
Yeah, so I would imagine it's fleeting, man. If this is a chance to win a Super Bowl after you've wallowed away for the Giants, go get the ring.
We may never pass this way again. You just don't know if you're ever going to have another opportunity.
Right.
So you bite down on it and you chase it and you do everything that you possibly can to make it happen. It's like, I don't know if you guys remember this.
Hundo, by the way, he can get a hundo in the first half.
What if he gets 80? Then just say, let me play the third quarter and let all the offensive line play the third quarter too.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, see, that's where.
Actually, you know what? I think we've come to a compromise. You let him play the first half. If he gets it in the first half, then it's good. If not, when you rest up and you go to the locker room at half, and then the muscles need to get re-warmed up or whatever. No, you get the.
I'll tell you what's happening here.
If you don't get it, you're done.
If the Eagles did that, and they're not going to, I don't think. If the Eagles did that, the football gods would punish them for their hubris, and Jordan Mailata would go down with a torn ACL. Some guy would roll up on their starting tackle, and it would just be like, "Well, see what you did."
And Saquon would get like 99 yards, he's like 2 yards short.
Saquon finishes 22 carries for 99 yards.
Yeah, rough.
Give him one.
Okay, what's coming up on the drive, Spence?
Mostly college football today. Of course, the Sugar Bowl starts when?
In 59 seconds.
Yeah. So I'll do my best not. You know what the deal is when you do this job and there's like a big game on TV. You just have to fight the urge to do play-by-play on your show. So, of course, we're going to cover this horrible situation in New Orleans, but a lot of interesting college football storylines. While we were off, a lot of incendiary accusations about BYU recruiting players from Utah. So we're going to get into some of that. And then, latest on the transfer portal, should BYU have received a bid to the CFP? Now that we have the ability to be retrospective, I think they have a case. We'll do a little jazz. They were smoked by the Knicks. But the NBA is starting to get a little interesting. We're actually, most people believe All-Star break is halfway. It's not. We're getting close to, teams playing half of their games. And I have seen some things lately that have been a little bit better, even though they're not winning. Tim Bontemps, ESPN, he does their MVP straw poll. Craig Buller, Jack Gordon, Monson. And then, mostly college pro football, a little jazz on the show today as well.
All right. Thank you to everyone who listened to the show today, answered questions, and, of course, joined me. Zachariah, always a pleasure. Happy New Year to everybody. We'll be back on tomorrow. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. We're done on ESPN 700.